intake form. Get started at hims.com/radio, and from there, a medical provider licensed in your state will determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find
Yeah. 97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Two o'clock, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Shutout for the Phils last night. Easy work of the Rays. We'll dive into that as they finish the three-game set tonight down in Tampa, trying to finish off a sweep of the Rays. Interesting game last night, eh? Some topics we can get into off of that one for sure. Also, some Eagles roster battles we'll talk about during Football at 4 today, something that's come up I am very intrigued by. We'll talk about that. Adam Kaplan, what is the biggest Eagles roster need right now? You tell me, what do you got? Right now, all of the stuff's been done, the Goddard stuff yesterday, so it seems like a lot of things are very intact. If I were to ask you guys out there right now, biggest Eagles question you want answered entering training camp, 609-403-0973. What's one thing Howie Roseman still needs to address? We'll address that coming up in a little bit. Daryl Morey doing the rounds today. He was on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast and had some interesting things to say. We will play some of that audio, some of the highlights from that conversation with Daryl Morey in the 3 o'clock hour today, as the NBA draft lottery is on Monday night. We will find out what the Sixers' future will look like. At least the draft future. They will have a completely different look next year at many spots. We'll see what Daryl Morey says, as he just spoke to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast about 2 hours ago. He was on the podcast, so got a chance to listen to that and hear some of the things that Daryl Morey has to say. He is not the most popular guy in town, and he obviously has a lot of things that he needs to fix with the 76ers. The Knicks win again last night in a game that seemingly was a carbon copy of the night before or the game before, where Boston couldn't hit the broadside of a barn shooting 25% from three-point range. They're up by 20. They can't seal the deal. Now they're down 2-0, and they lost both games on their home floor. Should NBA fans who are still paying attention to that, and it's hard to root for Boston and or New York. If you're into one of those series, and I'm kind of into the series just because I like, high-level basketball, the stuff, so I watched a lot of that last night as well as Phil's, the basketball, back and forth. But I just cannot believe what I'm seeing with this Celtics team. I just can't believe the ineptitude from beyond the arc right now. I mean, it is, unbelievable. This is like when the Knicks played the Sixers last year. The Knicks played the Sixers last year, and the Knicks went bananas. They just could not miss from three-point range in the Sixers series. You have guys like Josh Hart hitting 3, 4. Now, Josh Hart is much better from 3 now than he was. But last year in the playoffs, you're like, dude, this guy didn't make – last year when the Sixers played the Knicks in the playoffs, Josh Hart didn't make 3 threes in a game the entire year. And he did it every night of the week against the Sixers in the playoffs. One thing you got to admire about the Knicks is they are not afraid of the moment. The Nova Knicks, as they're kind of called, with Hart and Brunson and Bridges, they just keep coming at you. And I give them a lot of credit that they're down 20 and they never feel like they're out of it. But my gosh, what is up with the Celtics shooting? Now, the Knicks did not have a great shooting night last night, but 10 for 40 for the Celtics from three-point range. So it's a fun series, even though you got to watch Boston and New York play against each other while you're sitting it out at, at the second round of the playoffs, which is generally when the Sixers are in the playoffs and you have to wait for their impending departure. But no playoffs this year. I think that last night's Phillies game had so many intriguing things. And I'm interested to hear from you guys out there. I always like to see how people watch a game and what they think about when they're watching a game, right? Are you watching the game the same way that I'm watching the game? Am I watching the game the same way that he's watching a game? Are we all watching the game differently? So my takeaway from the game last night is a couple things. What's the big takeaway from everybody last night, right? The answer is obvious. It's Walker. Walker comes in, 3 innings, 7 strikeouts. But my big takeaway is the way that Walker attacked. That was my takeaway. Walker, to me, looked like a guy, and this is why I thought it was a very impressive display by Walker. Because, I don't want to be I'm all excited about it because he had a good outing. It happens. You pitch well, you don't pitch well. He's pitched well pretty much all year, so you got to give Walker his props there. But this is my takeaway. My takeaway from Walker was he embraced the role last night. He embraced the role. And you can almost see Walker attacking with first pitch strikes, 7 out of 10. The way his release finished off, you see the kick at the end. I mean, he doesn't throw all that hard. He's not like a 98, 99 kind of guy. But his fastball, his release, he had a little extra on it at the end. His splitter had some bite to it last night. Walker looked like a guy who said, listen, if I'm going to be in the bullpen, I want to have a prominent role in the bullpen. I don't want to just be a long man. I don't want to be just a guy that comes in for mop-up duty. I want to have a role. I was highly impressed by Walker's mindset in the game. I thought he attacked. I thought he had a plan. I thought he embraced being a bullpen guy. You get demoted to the bullpen with the season that he's having, you're like, hey, why me? What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. We just got a surplus. You're the guy right now. Why? Well, based on the fact that you didn't have a very good – basically they're saying because you didn't have a good year last year, you're now demoted, right? They're not saying, hey, because you're having a bad year now, you're demoted. It's because you had a bad year last year, you're getting demoted. It's the only reason. And it's just, by the way, Walker's the guy, but I like the fact that Walker apparently or seemingly looks like he's embraced this demotion. But he's saying, if you're going to demote me, I'm going to make it tough on you. If you're going to put me in the bullpen, I'm going to make you have to use me in higher leverage situations. I don't want to be just a guy that comes in a 6-1 game. I don't want to be a piggyback guy. Like the guy that I saw last night, I'm thinking, Is he now the right-handed pitcher that the Phillies might have to go to in key situations? I'm not ready to go that far. I don't want to see that yet because I'm not sure that Walker – look, 7 strikeouts last night. He has not been a big strikeout guy recently. His fastball is just not, this overpowering fastball. He doesn't have pinpoint control. His splitter last night, though, I thought was a very key pitch in the game last night for the 7 strikeouts. Now, a couple other things. Christopher Sanchez, I thought, well, again, I don't know. He didn't look himself again last night. I mean, 5 strikeouts, 6 innings, 85 pitches, 47 strikes. He was not a big strike thrower last night. First pitch strikes last night. Think about this. He faced 22 batters. He threw first pitch strikes only 8 times last night. That number is not great. I didn't think Sanchez looked overly impressive last night, but he gave up 1 hit, no walks. I mean, so at the end of the night, you're like, man, this guy had a great game last night. The Phillies gave up 2 hits in the game last night. But I thought Sanchez was, and this is a positive, that he gave up 2 hits, no runs, and I didn't think he looked his best last night. He did have 3 walks in the game. Did I say he had no walks in the game? He had 3 walks in the game last night. So, again, I'm going back to the, didn't have the first pitch strikes. He wasn't getting ahead. I was looking at Walker's line. He had no walks in the game last night. Sanchez, it just didn't seem, the last 2 starts, something just doesn't seem the same about Sanchez. Is anybody else feeling that vibe, or is that just me? Again, I'm asking, how are you watching the game differently than the way I'm watching a game? Because I'm watching Sanchez last night, and I'm thinking, man, something just doesn't seem right about Sanchez. I could be wrong. I don't know. Anybody else watching the game and feeling, man, Sanchez is kind of they're doing good. He's getting through these innings, but, something just doesn't look right. Let me know. 609-403-0973. Then, listen, I got to go through the lineup a little bit here and kind of give you some quick thoughts. Stott, again, 2 hits, 2 RBI, a run scored. Stott has been solid at the top of the lineup. But, Trey Turner, 2 for 4, 2 runs scored, 2 RBI. He hit a home run. Turner's up to 307 with a 375 on base percentage. I'd like to see the slug a little bit higher and show a little bit more power. But he had the home run last night. He goes from first to home all the way around, shows his speed. Turner, is he starting to break through a little bit? I'll tell you what. It's funny. We were watching this morning the Sports Rise, and Turner was on the post game. They had a quote from him, and he had his hat off, and his hair is just all over the place. Now, my girlfriend watches with me almost every single night, and she's like, I would never have known that this guy had hair like that. And I'm laughing because she's not wrong. It's this guy's been here now his 3rd year, and you barely know what he looks like or sounds like. So last night, he's on first base. Harper hits the double, and Turner comes all the way around, hustles his ass off to come around to score from first to home, right? And he slides in head first safely, and he barely even shows emotion that he just scored. And I'm like, that's what's wrong with this guy, man. You just hustled all the way from first to come around and score. The guy's waiting for you there to give you a little 5. And all you're just like is, whatever. I don't know. That's minor. I don't care, generally. I'm just saying he's a hard guy to connect with, man. Harper, 2 RBI double last night. Castellanos didn't do anything last night. Schwarber, again, 2 hits in the game. Nothing really that jumped off the page impactful. Kepler had a hit, and then the real Muto thing, he fouled the ball off his foot. I think he's okay. They said they weren't even going to x-ray him, but he had to leave the game last night. Bohm had a hit. Rojas, he was another guy, Rojas. I can't wait to talk to Nicky Nuggets today. His boy Rojas last night with a bunt in the game, right? In that very important 4th inning, right? When they scored the 5 runs in the inning, what happened in that inning? You had a little sacrifice bunt from Rojas. Nicky Nuggets says he doesn't want to see Rojas bunt ever again. Well, doesn't that bunt set the whole inning up for the most part? Of course it does. You get the 2 on with 1 out. And 2 on and 1 out, and you're sacrificing. So you're now going to 2 outs, but you're now turning the lineup over, and this is where it's an interesting decision because you're taking the out to go 2 outs, but now you're turning the roster over, the lineup over. So you're basically saying, hey, I will take 2 on in runners in scoring position, and there's 2 on because there was a play at the plate, right? Kepler got thrown out at home on the play. There was a ground ball to short. Real Muto went to third, if my memory is intact here. And then Kepler, I'm pretty sure they threw, was it Kepler that got thrown out at the plate? Refresh my mind on that one. I thought Kepler singled, Real Muto walked. So you had first and second, and then there was a pass ball that made it second and third, and Bohm hit the ground ball to short, and they threw Kepler out at home. So then that's where I was all this is to get to. I was pretty surprised they asked Rojas to bunt in that situation.
Yeah, so the series of events in the 4th inning, Mike, was Kepler got on base with the single. Then Real Muto walks. Then Real Muto gets to second on the passed ball, Kepler to third. Bohm grounded into the fielder's choice when they threw it home. Because remember, the whole thing was that should they throw it home or should they throw the guy out at second? Well, they went home. They got Kepler out at home on the fielder's choice. Then the next batter was Rojas. That's when he sacked bunted, and Real Muto scored, and Bohm the second.
There you go. So the sack bunt, I was pretty surprised by in that spot there.
Was it? How much of it was because it's Rojas?
Pleasantly surprised, I would say.
Because to me, what surprised me was in the bunting in that situation.
Yeah, it was like a what's it called? A suicide, basically.
Yeah,
they suicide squeezed in that spot.
But I was thinking last night. You have talked about numerous times, Mike, about the value of Rojas is his speed. That if he does bunt or does get a little squib grounder, that he can outrun the throw.
Yeah, but the point on this one is you are trusting. Like Nugget says, I don't need to see Rojas bunt ever again. They trusted him to suicide squeeze in that spot.
Right.
So you've got to make sure you get the bunt down. You got I was trying to remember the sequence that got Real Muto to third. He's on third base. Rojas bunts. You've got to make sure that gets down.
Right,
Because
you got to bunt it in the right direction.
Yeah, because you are now, if you miss the bunt, forget running in the right direction. As long as you get that bunt down, if the guy on third is breaking, generally the play is going to work. But you've got to make sure you get the bunt down, and that is where Rojas has had some problems, is actually getting the bunt down.
Right, actually squaring the ball up correctly and doing the full operation.
Absolutely. So Rojas in his last 15 games, this is why I was a little surprised again, that they asked him to suicide squeeze on the play, which, hey, listen, if you can get Rojas and use a suicide squeeze bunt play as a weapon, that is a major part of your arsenal.
And it's a real weapon because, again, he is not one of your best hitters, but he is a guy that if he can play his role well, he makes the lineup much longer.
Well, so far he has been one of your best hitters, 326, 340 on base.
In terms of resume.
In his last 15 games, Rojas is 326, 340 on base percentage, 15 hits in 46 at-bats, a home run, 9 RBI, a couple of doubles, 3 stolen bases. But, yes, even though he has swung the bat well, they said, hey, you're swinging the bat well, but we want you to do something else to kind of add to how well you're swinging the bat. We need you to drop this play down. And it's a big play in the game last night. And because, you mentioned the play at the plate. Now, he executes basically a really good suicide here. It's in on his hands. He has to kind of tweak himself out of the way a little bit, and somehow he gets that home. And you even saw Real Muto give him a little wave down there, like, dude, great job on getting that thing done. So 5 runs in the 4th inning. It's the Rojas bunt play that really sets the tone for them as they score that second run on that bunt play by Rojas. So the Rojas bunt, big play in the game. Stott then comes up. He gets an RBI. Turner gets another RBI. Then Harper drives in two with the double. And because you got all this speed on the bases, it's a big deal. So you saw last night having Rojas in that spot, being able to get the bunt down. So this is why, again, I go against Nicky Nuggets with his unwillingness. I said, listen, if you can utilize regular season May baseball games to perfect a craft, go for it. Yes, we're going to scream and argue if he doesn't get the bunt down there and Real Muto ends up getting tugged out at the plate because of a boneheaded play. But you have to call that there because you need to have him be able to do that come October baseball. That's what his role has to be for this team to be the best version of itself. You can't rely on Johan Rojas to hit .315. You can't. That's already been proven. He had a great 2023 season when he came up here and got to the playoffs, and he was overmatched. There's no reason to believe that he's going to go up there and hit .340 in the playoffs. So if he's struggling, you got to find other ways. And last night, bang, he drops down. And that was a tough pitch to bunt. It's in on the hands, riding in on him, and he kind of like, bang, he gets it down. It was actually a pretty close plate to play, too. So good job for Real Muto reading that whole thing.
Also, I would say, Mike,
hold on.
I was going to say the other part of what was encouraging for me was that Baz had been pitching well up to that fourth inning. So he kind of had their number a little bit. And then at that point, they kind of were like, all right, we've seen him a couple times. We're starting to figure him out. We're starting to, they weren't passive at the plate, Mike. They weren't having an attitude, well, this guy's got our number tonight. They were saying, no, we're trying to figure this guy out. We're going to work him. We're going to see what we can do. We're going to do whatever it takes to take this guy out.
Well, listen, there's so many things with this team that are easily criticized, but you get certain nights and moments. What did we say the other day, right? Why did you win? Your four highest paid players and your top pitcher basically shut the door down. Well, last night, why did you win the game last night? It wasn't your, top four paid players. Your 9-hole hitter gets a suicide squeeze down. Your top of the order guy, Bryson Stott, who's one of the lowest paid players on the team, he comes up, gets a single, drives in two. Turner, yes, he's a part of it. And Harper did have 2 RBI, but you spread it out, right? You spread it out, and then your pitching, which has been maligned, your bullpen came up with 3 scoreless innings and 7 strikeouts in those innings. So, listen, it's starting to move in the direction, right? It's starting to move in the direction. 21-15 Philadelphia is now, and they've won a bunch of games here now recently with the offense starting to come through. You scored 8 runs the one night, 7 runs last night. The weather's starting to change. Things are starting to happen a little bit. Is the vibe changing around the Phillies as they get ready for the Rays tonight? By the way, that game with the Rays tonight, the lineup is not out yet, but it is Jesus Luzardo, so you got to feel pretty good about picking up a sweep here. The Phillies are minus 139 on the run line tonight, so possible sweep here for the Fightins as they go down to Tampa, so that would be a big way to kind of start this the first series of the week.
A game last night is probably the most vindicating of games for a guy like Dave Dombrowski, because Dombrowski has said numerous times that this team will only go as far as the other guys stepping up on certain nights.
No
and
doubt.
I think a game like last night with Stott doing what he did and Rojas doing what he did, and the game before Bohm hitting the home run, these are the kind of games that validate what Dombrowski built.
Here's a stat for everybody out there that kind of encapsulates who the Phillies are. They are 15-3 when they score 5 or more runs. So if they could just, I know asking to score 5 runs every game is a lot. I mean, hey, you got to score 5 runs every night. But, teams can average 3.9, 4.2, somewhere in that range. If they can score 4 or 5 runs, they are 15-3. That's how good their pitching has been. that they have good enough starting pitching, that they just need to really focus, I think, on getting an elite arm in that bullpen. One or two more guys, but at least one guy. Because you saw last night how that takes the pressure off your team when your bullpen is a factor. And by the way, I got some bullpen numbers for the people out there I'm going to share with you coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video on Twitter, X platform, and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Give me a follow, subscribe there. You can watch the show on your home TV, laptop, tablet, devices, on the radio, on the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. So many ways to get to us. Glenn in Northfield, I see your text. I'm going to read that one first when we come back. If you want to get your thoughts read and reacted to, here's the number. Text in now, 609-403-0973, or use the free mobile app on your phone and message us through the app. You're starting to feel better about this Phillies team. 8-9 on the road, 21-15 overall, 15-3 when they score 5 or more runs. Luzardo goes tonight as the Phillies go for the sweep down in Tampa. When we come back, something about the Phillies bullpen you're going to be a little surprised by. Are you buying it? Stick around. I'll explain next on the Sports Bash. 2:30 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Your thoughts on the text board, 609-403-0973. Phil's starting to come around offensively and with the pitching. The starting pitching has been excellent all season long, as our buddy Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad points out. He has a tweet up as the Phillies bullpen numbers, though, I want to get into. I told you I had some Phillies bullpen numbers. You know, their starting pitcher. Listen to the starting pitching, okay? This is how, when we talk about their record being 15-3 when they score 5 or more runs, their starting pitching, whatever category you like, whip, they are 6. ERA, they are 4th. Strikeouts, walk ratio, they are 1st. Strikeouts per 9, they are 1st. F-WAR, if you're a fan of that number, these are some real advanced stats. They are 1st. The bullpen, since the Cubs series, which was like 2 weeks ago, right? It was like the last week of April, I think they played the Cubs. It's 11 games. So you have an 11-game sample size. Not huge, but still. Whip, the bullpen's whip, 1.06. That's 3rd best in baseball. Batting average against, 204. That's 4th best in baseball. Strikeouts per 9, 10. 2nd best in baseball. Strikeout to walk percentage, 2nd best in baseball. ERA, 2.79. 7th best in baseball. Is the Phillies bullpen starting to come around a little bit? Are they starting to kind of settle into their roles, come around a little bit? Now, my answer to that would be no. I mean, those numbers are great, but do I really trust them? And I don't. I don't really trust them. You know, it is the ups and downs of a long season. I think they are pitching better. There's no question that those numbers suggest they are pitching better, but I don't think that they have guys that they count on specifically in specific. Hey, you're the 8th inning guy that I trust the most. You're the 7th inning guy that I trust the most. When their bullpen was at their best a couple of years ago, you know, you had a guy like Sir Anthony Dominguez. He was pitching in the 7th, Alvarado pitching in the 8th. And, you know, you had last year, you had Hoffman and Estevez. Now, come playoff time, they didn't get the job done. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't yearn to have more talented guys in those opportunities. So you look at the pitching right now. And the starting pitching is World Series. If you said to me right now, here's the starting rotation, could you win a World Series with this pitching? 1,000,000%. Yes. 1,000,000% you could say, yes, you could win the World Series with that starting pitching staff. There's not even a hesitation. Could you win with this lineup? I would say yes. I'm not 1,000,000%. I'd be more like, 70%. I feel pretty good that I can win. I can win with that lineup, but I got to have the right blend of that lineup. They got to be going good. If I get the lineup that's the cold lineup, no good. Now, it's every team. Cold lineup. You know, generally pitchers don't go through the cold streaks where they're just not that good. You know, pitchers generally, you know, when they're good, they're good. When you're a good pitcher, very few times do you see a good starting pitcher go out there and just hit the struggle bus. You know, Zach Wheeler, 8 games, 6 quality starts. Luzardo, 7 games, 4 quality starts. You know, when you say, well, why not a quality start every single time? Sometimes they could. Sometimes the circumstances just don't allow. I mean, it's not generally, you know, even when they don't have a quality start, generally it's not because they got bombed. You know, they're not giving up 8 runs in 2 innings and they're out of the game. Even when they're not their best, they're generally kind of competing. But when a hitter's on a bad run, man, striking out, unproductive outs, bad approach, can't get on base, just it's a whole different ballgame. But those numbers I just gave you about the bullpen, I wouldn't say I'm excited about them. Glenn in Northfield says, give Rojas a chance. Oh, come on, Glenn. I think out of everybody in the world, I've given Rojas the biggest chance out of everybody. I mean, I'm the only person probably out there that doesn't hate the guy. I know people are starting to come around a little bit, but listen, when I'm critical of people, it is basically in the moment more so than the big picture. Like, do I think Nick Castellanos absolutely stinks? No. I'm disappointed in him in key moments. Like, Castellanos' numbers across the board, they're pretty good. I mean, he's hitting like solid 270. He's a solid player. My criticism of Castellanos is, hey, I got second and third with 2 outs here. I need a big hit, and he generally strikes out. My Rojas, I'm the one guy a couple of years ago when, the Phillies let him hit in the World Series. I didn't have a problem with them letting him hit in the World Series. Some people were saying you should have hit Cody Clemens for him, or you should have hit, I don't even remember who was on the team at that time. Those guys were so bad and so insignificant. I was like, I don't need to see those guys hit. So, Glenn, I give Rojas a chance. I'm probably Rojas' top supporter here. But that said, I know his limitations. I know his baseball IQ is low, but I also know sometimes the reason I say I would play Rojas over Marsh is because he just gives you more chances to win. He gives you more chances to win because of his speed. It's something that, and Marsh isn't a slow guy either, but he's not Rojas. He's not Rojas. And I think one of the problems with Marsh right now, he strikes out too much. Rojas needs to cut down on his strikeouts too. But Glenn says give him a chance, think positive. I don't know out there that there's been too many people that have given Rojas more of a chance than me, man. Rojas, to me, he's like the Ben Simmons for people. Like I had no problem with Ben Simmons. He frustrated me. I feel like he could have hit, he had a higher ceiling that he never hit. Rojas, same thing. Rojas frustrates me. I think there's more there, but I don't think he stinks. I don't think Simmons stinks. He was frustrating. I don't think Rojas stinks. He's frustrating. But overall, I agree with you, Glenn. I think the Phillies need to just stick with Rojas and live with his, periodic boneheaded plays that are going to pop up every now and then, and hope that the more he plays, the less of them you see. Generally you play more, you learn more. So play Rojas more and get less boneheaded plays. Play him less, get more boneheaded plays. It's hard to erase the boneheaded plays when you're not playing as much. But I think you saw last night, he gives you way more outs. In a poker hand, how many outs are there in this poker hand right now? He gives you way more outs, right? He has so many more ways that you can win with him playing than you can with Marsh playing. And when the lineup comes out today, I'll be interested to see if he's in the lineup today because the Rays are throwing a right-handed pitcher.
Mike, it goes back to what you said a couple minutes ago, which is, this is an organization that ended the National League Championship Series 2 years ago with Jake Cave at bat. So this organization has a guy in Rojas who is going to give you more than Jake Cave and Christian Pache, and right now is giving you way more than Brandon Marsh is. So to me, they're just let him play, let him work it out, let him get through it, because you know what? You don't have a better option.
You don't have a better option on this team. No, not at all. You do not have a better option on this particular roster. What you do have is time to develop or you have time to develop Justin Crawford and see if that's your answer, and or decide whether you want to make a trade and bring somebody in.
Right.
And what level of player can you get that you deem to say this guy gives us a better chance to win than Rojas does? Now, most people could laugh and say there's a ton of people out there that give you a chance better than Rojas. Who's available, I mean?
Right.
You got to find, I don't want a trade offer that sends 6 guys to one team, okay? I don't need this. Look, it's one of these trades. Major League Baseball, you don't generally see trades that include multiple major leaguers on one team going to another team for multiple major leaguers. Those trades are few and far between, where it's like, hey, we'll give you 2 guys from our MLB roster for 2 guys on your MLB roster. They don't happen all that much. So it's like, I know people, it's like, hey, package Bohm and Rojas. You don't generally see trades that you're getting 2 major league players packaged at the same time, because then, what ends up happening is the team has to replace 2 regular everyday players.
Right.
And the Phillies right now, if you traded Bohm and Rojas, you're now playing Sosa and Marsh every single day. I don't know that makes you better. Now, what are you getting back from the other team? Yeah, I don't know. Are you getting a bullpen arm for those two guys? Rojas and Bohm? Possible, but you're still then deficient at now two other areas.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. Like, the reason why you see prospects traded so much is because teams don't have to open up roster spots for those guys. You can just put them in the minor leagues and let them develop and figure it out later kind of deal.
Yes, especially when you are talking about playoff teams.
Yes.
They don't want to give away two everyday players at the same time and then have to replace them. Unless, of course, it's like, and when would this happen? Hey, I'll give you two starting players every day, and you give me two starting players every day.
That's very
very rare. So if you're sending two players away that are in your everyday lineup, I don't really see that happening. It could. That would be, my opinion on that would be, we've decided Justin Crawford's a better option and a better answer. And quite frankly, the way Rojas is going right now, I don't know why they would be deciding that. I mean, Rojas is hitting over 300. His on base is 340. You might not believe in him, but like, there's no reason to rush Crawford up if you're saying, hey, we got a guy right now that's hitting over 300 with a 340 plus on base percentage. So they're going to try to hold Crawford off, I would imagine, as long as they can. And here's the other thing. Crawford also hits left-handed. Now, his splits against lefties in the minors have been, for this particular season, I got to double check where they were the last time I saw them. He's kind of, he's been up and down. He was in the upper 300s and he struggled a little bit. Now he's been a lot better. I don't know against left-handed pitching this season. He hasn't had a whole heck of a lot of at-bats, 33, but he's hitting 375 against left-handed pitching. So you would say, hey, right now he can hit against left-handed pitching. Can he do that at the major league level? My point is this. You're going to bring Crawford up to platoon him.
No.
Now, he would play more as the left-handed bat. He faces the right-handed pitching. Then the problem is you're playing Rojas very infrequently.
Right, and now you're potentially hurting his...
Yeah, see, Rojas to me is
bat.
Either you play him almost every single day. He's not a platoon guy. You can't just use Rojas in spot 2-day-a-week starts.
But Mike,
he's got to play every day.
But, Mike, isn't part of this conversation also the reality that you're not going to win or lose a championship because your center fielder is Johan Rojas, right? Like,
well, some might say you've lost 3 years in a row now because Johan Rojas.
Well,
actually, 2. He wasn't here in 2022.
But then that would be that's a false narrative because it's not Johan Rojas' fault that the entire lineup has failed around him in the postseason.
Well, it magnitudes, when others are fail, yes, you then put the microscope on people who are less important, and it heightens them and their failures.
Like, to me, if you ask me, hey, why have the Phillies regressed every year in the postseason? I would say because I'm spending $500 million on a group of players who have not shown up at big moments.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You can watch the show live on the Twitter X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. It's easy to do. Just go to at Mike Gill Show on any platform. Watch on your home TV, laptop, any device, on the radio, and on the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. 973ESPN.com/app. Download the app. It's free. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Coming up, Phillies lineup should be out here in just a little bit. We'll get that to you. I'm interested to see if Rojas is in the lineup last night. Is Walker a legitimate option now as a bullpen arm? Plus, can Maxey and McCain play together? You'll hear what Daryl Morey had to say about that in 15 minutes. Stick around. More Sports Bash coming up. 249. There's a new pope, by the way. Went to Villanova.
It's kind of a big deal.
See a Philly guy?
I definitely root for the Nova Knicks, right?
Somebody tweeted that they announced him just in time to see Andrew Painter's first start at AAA. Smart move.
Did the Knicks beating the Celtics twice now, was that a good omen that he was going to become pope? The luck of the Irish ran out. It's all about Nova now.
The Nova Knicks.
It's
Gotta give them
Nova's
credit.
fault.
I mean, I'm rooting for the Knicks here. I'd like to see them win this series. I just can't believe how it's going.
It is pretty wild.
What are the odds on that? Have the odds shifted at all?
Oh,
Are the
yeah.
Knicks now the favorite to win that series? Because I feel like I could bet the Celtics and get some good odds here. What are the numbers now on that series? I got series markets here. Boston minus 120. The Knicks are plus 100. So the Celtics are still favored in the series.
Yeah, but they were like a heavy favorite coming in.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like they still, even though they're down 2-0 and going on the road, they're still the favorite.
Hey man, if a Villanova graduate can be pope, then the Knicks have a chance to take out the Celtics.
Possible. Do you know any other city other than Philadelphia? You know the Wells Fargo Center is getting a name change again.
I saw that.
What is it going to be called? The Xfinity Mobile Center?
Xfinity Mobile.
Arena?
Yes. Which is the dumbest thing in the world to me.
How many other fan bases other than Philadelphia actually care about the name of the building, the stadium, or the arena?
None? I can't even tell you. I feel like this like it's a very Philadelphia thing. Like,
I think so too. Like I saw Crossing Broad do like a man on the street thing. You know, Pagan goes out. They have him like interviewing people. Like, what do you think of the name change? It's got to be the only fan base out there that actually gives a rat's what the name of the place is called.
well, because like a place in like New York City, like all those stadiums don't have businesses attached to them. It's Yankee Stadium. I mean, it's been Madison Square Garden for like 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, none of the New York teams play in a building that has a corporate sponsorship
Except
to
for
it.
Barclays.
I mean, the real New York teams.
Real New York team.
Yeah, you throw in that one. No, the Mets don't count. Citi Field. I mean, they've got a. You know, I'm talking about the Yankees, the Knicks.
Yankees, the Knicks, Rangers.
The name of the what is currently the Wells Fargo Center has been like 5 different things.
Yep.
First Union Center, Wachovia.
Wachovia.
It's been banks every
First
single time, right?
Union.
They've all been banks.
It's almost like the same. I think it was the same bank kept changing.
Well,
the
I think the
name.
banks just kept getting like,
bought out.
yeah. First Union, Wachovia, Wells Fargo. There's got to be at least.
There's at least 2 others. Let me
What
look at
other
the full
ones are we
list.
forgetting here? But it will now be called the Xfinity Mobile Arena. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking, you know, the Sixers never even used the name. They just used the center. They refused to use the actual thing. And I always wondered, like, that's what.
So the first name after it was initially Spectrum 2, but the first corporate name was Core State Center.
The Core States Center, yeah.
Then it became First Union Center.
Core States, First Union,
Then it became Wachovia.
Wachovia.
Sorry, I'm reading an article about it, so I'm scrolling down.
There's a lot easier way to do this.
Probably.
Very clean. Yeah, not probably, definitely. Just go to the Wikipedia page.
So First Trust was the one after that before Wells Fargo.
I don't remember that one ever. First Trust Center? I don't remember that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. First Trust. No, it says there's an agreement with First Trust Bank here, it says.
No, here you go. Core State Center, First Union Center, Wachovia Center, Wells Fargo Center. That's the 5 names. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the original name was the Spectrum 2.
Spectrum 2.
Yeah. I found that in 5 seconds. Come on, you're better than that. Now it's going to be called what?
Xfinity Mobile Arena.
Okay. So what's the nickname for that? The X Center? Or X Arena?
X going to give it to you?
See, the arena part of it kind of, the X Arena.
X
You going to the
Arena.
X tonight? You going down to Wells Fargo?
This should be a question you ask in Nuggets coming up today.
I'm sure he's probably paying attention.
I'm sure you could probably always have a nickname for it.
FU Center was always a good one. You going to More Sports Bash coming up. All right, 3 o'clock, Sports Bash this hour brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating and cooling service, plumbing, and installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907, online broadlees.net. I'm Mike Gill, Sports Bash taking you till 6. Lot to do. Daryl Morey spoke today. He was on the Right to Ricky Sanchez podcast. Lot of things to discuss. He was on for about an hour, so we're going to break down some of the key things that he talked about on that podcast today. And I'm sure there are things that are not going to make people happy, which is very fair. Morey discussed a plethora of topics today, but some of the things that really stood out to me just before we play some of the audio that we got from the interview today. I mean, he talked for an hour. I mean, we could probably come up with a whole heck of a lot more. These were some of the big things. You know, people keep wondering why Morey hasn't been fired. And, you know, Morey stresses that this is his first losing season that he's ever had. It's the only time he's never had a winning record ever. He has been a guy who has won, I believe his winning percentage of teams that he has put together is like 60%. Now, a lot of people say, I don't care what your regular season accolades are, which is totally fair. If you only are interested in postseason success, then yes, you would be critical of his answer there. However, to achieve postseason success, you have to be good in the regular season. Whether regular season games matter all that much anymore, it's still the gateway to getting to the playoffs. So if Morey has made it to the playoffs every single year, essentially he's been to the playoffs every single year, that's not saying that that's acceptable or good enough. The question I always ask for the people who don't like Morey, I know there's a lot of people who just don't like the guy, they don't like the analytics, they don't like the way that he builds teams. That's your prerogative. You could say, I don't like the way he does things, but I have to acknowledge he's been somewhat successful. Has he won a championship? No. I would ask people, give me a list of maybe the 5 best NBA executives you can think of. You know, like my point is this. People are like, Morey stinks, he's got to go. He's never had a losing record. So do you get rid of a guy who's never had a losing record because he hasn't won a championship? Who are the 5 guys who have won championships? Who is the GM who, by the way, built the Dallas Mavericks and took them to the finals last year? I mean, seriously, the people remember that the Mavericks, now they didn't win, so people say, well, they didn't even win the NBA championship. Well, they were there. Does that mean that guy stinks now, right?
Well, they think he does because he traded away Luka.
Yeah, so he built a team that was good enough to get to a finals, but now he's also the worst because he traded Luka. Although people are now wondering, oh, does he have the last laugh? I mean, Luka's sitting on the sideline. I don't know. I don't know what people think constitutes in the NBA. Most people don't even know who GMs are in the NBA.
Right, and I think that's really where the larger part of this conversation is. People know, like you mentioned in the last hour, Mike, about the idea that only in Philadelphia do the fans care about the name of the arena, right? Well, only in Philadelphia do we know and can rattle off every executive of the 76ers.
Well, I think sports fans in general have more information now. They are more in tune to all of that stuff. But my point is this. I think that like the Celtics won a championship, okay? Brad Stevens is the GM there. There was a time where people thought Brad Stevens was the greatest coach of all time.
Right.
Even Brad Stevens agreed that being a GM is more important than being the coach. Remember, we used to battle about the importance of the coach. So Brad Stevens has done a really good job of putting that team together.
He's actually done a better job as a GM than as a head coach.
Yeah, I would say Brad Stevens is one guy that you could say, okay, like if he was available, would you flip-flop Morey for Stevens? I would say, yeah, I'd do that.
Yeah, I would do that.
I don't know, would you take Pat Riley? He's the GM generally of the or I guess he's the president of basketball operations.
He has Daryl Morey's job with Miami.
Yes. would you flip-flop Morey for Pat Riley? I mean, Riley's kind of getting up there.
Yeah, Riley's got to be in his 70s at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, see, the problem with Riley is people don't understand that Riley runs the Miami Heat like a dictator. I don't know if he would be allowed to do that in any other franchise. You know what I mean? Part of the reason why he's still in Miami is because the Miami Heat owner, was it Mickey Arison, I think it is? That guy basically just lets Riley do whatever he wants. And
Yeah.
Riley's the guy who's telling LeBron James to come into his office so he can measure his body
Well,
fat.
like Sam Presti is a guy who is highly regarded as one of the better GMs in basketball. But
Right.
Sam Presti is kind of a Morey disciple.
Yes. And by
So
the
if
way,
you're saying that Morey stinks and you think what has he ever won? Sam Presti hasn't won anything. Now he's been an assistant general manager on teams that won championships when he was with the Spurs. Jeez, I
Yes.
blanked out for a second of where he came from. But I mean, Sam Presti is kind of a more analytical driven type of guy. I mean, he's
Right.
kind of more of the cut out of the Morey.
and that's why he's collected 200 draft picks.
Exactly. But I mean, like what Presti is doing is essentially very reminiscent of what Morey and Sam Hinkie tried to do with Philadelphia. Now,
Right,
you
that
could say
style.
Presti. See, Morey is getting a lot of criticism because the team hasn't gotten out of the second round. And again, that to me is another flawed situation. Yes, it's disappointing, but let's say the Knicks get knocked out in the second round here, or the Celtics, either one of these two teams. Does that mean that they're not good enough to win the championship? Like, we've always kind of deemed that because the Sixers got knocked out in the second round, that means they weren't good enough to win a championship. But if Boston gets knocked out in the second round, does that really mean, like, well, then they weren't good enough to win a championship? Of course not. Boston could win the championship even though they got knocked out in the second round. The Sixers getting knocked out in the second round is disappointing, but it's not an indictment on where they ranked in the hierarchy of teams that could win a championship.
Sure.
So, I don't know, is Sam Presti a guy? Now, if you're saying yes to Sam Presti, then you're probably would be okay with Morey.
Right, because again, they have a similar philosophy. It's just there's always a perception of somebody else is better because the grass is greener on the other side of the fence.
I'm just trying to think of GMs that are clearly, like I said the other day, if Bob Myers, who is available, now there's no indication that he wants to be an NBA general manager again or team president. If Bob Myers, who does work for
Josh Harris.
He's with the
He's
Washington
an advisor for the
Commanders.
Washington Commanders.
If he said, I want to get back into basketball, and Josh Harris made him the general manager and president of basketball, I mean, technically, Elton Brand is the GM.
Right.
But if Josh Harris said, I want you running the Sixers, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'm trying to think of what other guys available that you said, get rid of Morey because he stinks. Now, Sam Presti, by the way, has been to one NBA Finals. One. Is he a successful general manager?
Well, to some people, that's more successful than Morey.
He's
Morey's never been.
He's won 56% of his games as the general manager. Morey has won far more than that. I don't know. Who's more successful, Morey or Presti?
The perception is because the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. It's Presti because he has a appearance in an NBA Finals.
Yeah. So I get Morey is a very unlikable guy, too. I don't think he comes across as like, I don't know.
Quirky.
He's definitely an oddball.
He's very odd. I mean, the interview he did today, the shirt he's wearing, I don't think any other executive of
He had an
any other
Allen
team is
Iverson
wearing
shirt.
that
I
shirt.
like the little shot that he took at Ben Simmons. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
He said, I'm wearing the shirt of the last successful number one overall
pick.
draft pick that the Sixers had.
And Morey can take that shot because he didn't draft Ben Simmons.
He did not draft Ben Simmons, but he is well aware that Ben Simmons, he says, we also have some other good draft picks. There's one over my shoulder, and it's a picture of Joel Embiid.
Right.
So Morey is a quirky guy. He is not the guy that you envision running your franchise. He dresses kind of schleppy. He's kind of a little the way he speaks kind of oddly. I mean, but he's a very smart guy. And I think because of all of these other things, you make a generalization that he's not good at his job. He doesn't dress the way a GM would dress. He doesn't look the way a GM should look.
But we
he
do
doesn't
this in
talk.
Philadelphia, Mike.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point is I think people judge more so based on appearance and look and sound than they do, hey, this guy's been really successful. It's easy to say, what has he won? I can say that for
everybody else.
Virtually every general manager in basketball other than Bob Myers, Pat Riley.
Brad Stevens.
Brad Stevens just got one, yes, so you can add him to that list, I guess.
But guess what? Calvin Booth, the GM of the Nuggets, he got fired 2 years after winning a championship.
Mm-hmm. Who's the GM? I can't think of his name that's down in San Antonio.
R.C. Buford.
R.C. Buford. Most people don't even know that. I mean,
asked me
Greg
that trivia
Popovich-
question yesterday.
Yeah, I should have. I'm trying to think, though, realistically, are there GMs out there that people are saying Morey stinks because these guys are so great?
Well, for example, Rob Pelinka is the GM of the Lakers when they won a championship. Would you rather have Rob Pelinka instead of Daryl Morey?
No. I'm not interested in Rob Pelinka at all.
But he's got a championship.
I know. That was kind of a fugazi one. But
He's still got a ring.
yeah.
Again, it's he has the nice car in the driveway, and Daryl Morey still has the Honda Civic.
So let's hear some of the stuff here, because someone says anyone who gives Paul George a 4-year max, $200 million contract is not suitable to be the GM. Also, needlessly extending Embiid when he was coming off an injury and already under contract. Why not see how he progressed after his third surgery on the same knee? What was the rush to extend Embiid? Makes zero sense in my opinion. He actually addressed that topic today. So let's fire off that one where he said, let's fire off the one that talked about him basically, let's see. And I said this the other day about Embiid. I don't have a lot of concern about Embiid. He kind of echoed that today, and he gave a lot of examples on why they're not all that concerned about it. But I like, people criticize Morey for signing Embiid. I think he answered that question. I don't see that on here. Is that on here?
Yeah, so so the question was asked about, and they were saying, this is not our question, but a lot of people have asked, why did you sign Embiid? Why did you sign Paul George? And this was Daryl Morey's answer.
If we're winning the title, Joel Embiid's on the team. I think it's important how these top players, and Joel's going to be one of the top players all time, regardless of how things get written from here, in terms of everyone knows how good he was in his MVP year and multiple years around that. When you go out and get a top free agent like we did with Paul, obviously, people are questioning that, but, we thought that was absolutely the best way to maximize the window with Joel.
All right, so there's a lot there, though, because his answer is we went out and got a top free agent in Paul. The retort to that for many people is we don't think that was a top free agent. So now they're questioning his basketball acumen by somebody sitting in Egg Harbor Township thinks that Paul George was not the right guy. Now, on the surface, the injuries that he sustained this year would be accurate that has not worked out so far. My answer to that would be Daryl Morey doesn't make that decision in a vacuum. He doesn't sit by himself and say, hey, Josh Harris, I got a great idea. Let me sell you on this. No. Ownership says, can we get Paul George? I think we can. Then ownership says, I can get Dr. J. Okay? So you are now questioning Dr. J. Okay? So you're saying it's Daryl Morey's fault. They got Dr. J on board. Do you think Dr. J would have been like, hey, guys, I think this is a bad idea. I'm not doing this.
And then showed up.
Right, and then showed up. So is Dr. J also a moron? Like, look, the entire organization was on board with this. So you might say, I don't like the fact that the entire organization was on board with this. But my point is, we're trying to put this at the feet of Morey and Morey alone. And so you don't like the ownership group. That's a different conversation. And that could be fair, too. But my point is, don't pin this and say Morey doesn't know what he's doing because he decided to sign these guys. No, this was hey, how do we get Paul George? Can we get him to come here? I think it's a good idea to pair him up with Joel Embiid. Why? Because Joel Embiid has been an MVP player in this league. We think that if we can get a better player next to him, we've had Tobias Harris, that hasn't worked out. We've had Ben Simmons, that didn't work out. We had James Harden, that didn't work out. If we think we can get a different style of player that fits better with Joel, who's a veteran player ready to win a championship. Now, so far it has backfired on them. But this, again, isn't all at the feet of Daryl Morey. Like, he's not acting in a vacuum alone on this one.
Right. Again, this goes back to what I said about Pat Riley. Pat Riley acts unilaterally in Miami. Daryl Morey is not the dictator of the 76ers doing whatever he wants without anybody's input or discretion.
He also stressed that they are not winning a championship, as you heard. Like, why did you sign Embiid? Well, we're not winning a championship without Embiid. Now, some people would say, well, that's ridiculous. He showed he can't win a championship. I think his point is this, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. This is how I interpret it as just somebody listening to this as an NBA fan. Morey understands to win a championship, you have to have a superstar player. He is a guy who has won an MVP. Now, I know Sixer fans, the injuries have been so frustrating. But his point, I think, is, listen, if we trade Joel Embiid, now we're back looking for a superstar. When you have a superstar, you take as many swings with that superstar as you can until it is no longer sustainable.
Right.
So his, I think, reaction to this is, listen, we're not winning a championship without Joel Embiid. We have one of those players. There's only a handful of them in the entire league, right? How many guys in the entire league can you say, I can win a championship with that guy because he's the best player? There are, and they're dwindling.
8?
If 8 is even the answer. So you got to put the Tatum Brown, because they won one last year, that duo together. I don't think one of them can do it by themselves. They needed each other.
Well, I was thinking more like Jokic, Giannis, Steph Curry when he's healthy.
Not now. Not anymore. Not Steph Curry today.
Okay, well, maybe not Steph Curry today, but
Not 35-year-old Steph Curry, okay. I don't think is winning you a championship. Not now. Not even LeBron at 40. He's getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I wasn't saying LeBron. I think SGA is that kind of guy.
We'll find out in these playoffs. He's getting his second crack at it now.
I mean, we're learning.
Maybe Anthony Edwards.
I was going to say maybe Anthony Edwards might be that guy.
Right. So I think his point is, listen, we have one of those guys.
Right, one of those guys.
We've got one of them. We just named a bunch of guys who have not won titles.
That's true.
SGA, Anthony Edwards.
Well, since the guys who have won titles, like LeBron and Kawhi, have got knocked out.
They're getting older. They're getting knocked out. Now, you might say, well, Embiid's getting older too. He's not quite where those guys are.
Right, he's not
mid-30s. LeBron. He's not Steph. So, and he actually brings up, the fact that Kawhi Leonard went through these knee problems, and he was out there playing 45 minutes a night in these playoffs as well. But he talked about that Embiid. I said the other day, I don't have a lot of concern about Embiid coming back. He said when it explains that Embiid will not return as a fading player.
If Joel comes back, it's going to be at a very high level. I actually don't see a scenario where he's, fading. I see him playing at a high level, and that's so important to him that he will either get himself there or not. That's my feeling. I think he views himself correctly as an MVP level guy, lesser version.
So he said when he comes back, it will not be as a fading player because he only sees himself as an MVP level player. In other words, he's not going to go out there and play a season if he's a deteriorated version of himself. And he also said, the question went back to, why did you sign him? Because he's saying they followed the best medical advice out there and kind of gave some follow-up with the Kawhi Leonard stuff.
Again, we making the best decision on the best medical advice. We, like the plan that he's on. He's with the guy who rehabbed Kawhi, did his surgery, is leading his rehab. Joel was, in New York earlier this week with him. He has his guy as a big part of the process. So the work is there. And, we shall see. I guess we shall see. But we felt, given the information we have, it was absolutely the right thing we did.
So there's a little bit more of a follow-up that, in fact, he mentions at one point that the doctors actually thought it was better for him to play in the Olympics, that getting active on the knee in basketball stuff was actually a thing. But Morey did admit that the Sixers might have gone wrong post-Olympics with his knee.
When it wasn't progressing like all of us hoped, mostly him, that, he was maybe like, okay, maybe we should have taken a different path earlier. I think that's fair. I think he was probably right. With the benefit of hindsight, maybe you do some different things early in the year. But we also felt like we were in a good path from the doctors, and they thought it was the right path.
So a lot of this was, hey, we probably could have done something different with that Embiid stuff, which, listen, that's a big mistake to get that completely wrong. You basically wasted an entire season. As I've said many times, I think this was the worst season in the history of the franchise. Now, some people will say, well, why wouldn't that get you fired? If you have one bad season, now everybody is assuming that they're right about Paul George and Joel Embiid being a mistake to pair together. You can't surmise that off of 1 year. I mean, you wouldn't want to be judged off of 1 year. So you might be right in the moment now. It did not work this year. It was horrible. But that doesn't get you fired when you've won every other season you've ever been in charge.
Yeah, it's like, for example, and I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, but if you are having your credit score surmised because you're buying a building, let's say, you don't want one mistake that you made 10, 15 years ago used against you for the rest of your life, do you? You don't want I had this one situation used against you forever, so why are we holding one bad year against?
Yeah, and again, I said if he's the GM, he gets a demerit for this.
Right.
No question. Now your feet are to the fire. You've made these decisions. We endorsed them. But now you have to fix this. And if you don't, 2 back-to-back years of this is unacceptable, and you're gone. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, does he think that Maxey and McCain can coexist? You might be surprised at how he answers this question. Plus, is Quentin Grimes a part of their future? All that and more coming up next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. 329 Sports Bash this hour brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing Heating, 609-390-3907. I'm Mike Gill. What's everybody think about Daryl Morey's comments so far? I would imagine most people are probably seething out there.
Right, because a lot of people, no matter what Morey says, they look at right now as...
Do you like Morey? Are you a Morey guy or not so much?
I'm indifferent on Morey. I could do with or without him.
Yeah, if they found somebody that you told me, give me a name that's available and said, this is the guy, I have zero problem
Like, for example,
moving on from Morey. I think people just don't like Morey and therefore don't acknowledge that he's done a pretty good job in his career. He came here to get him out of the second round. That has not happened. I look at that as kind of like if the Knicks or the Celtics get knocked out, one of them is getting knocked out.
Right.
Both of those teams can win a title.
Correct.
So if you don't get out of the second round, does that mean that your team isn't good enough?
No, because a lot of this comes down to matchups and who's hot, who's cold. There's so many variables. Like, if you go back a few years ago, if Ben Simmons doesn't pass up the shot under the basket, if he doesn't have a horrible last few games against the Hawks and they win that series, everything we're talking about right now is a completely different narrative.
The matchup thing is an interesting thing. Yeah, by the way, I think the Sixers generally, like the year that they lost to the Raptors, could they have won a title that year?
Maybe. Because, listen, it's not like the Raptors had a ton of resistance on their way to a title.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think
that was the year that Durant tore, what was his Achilles in the final? Durant had
happened.
whatever injury it was.
Yeah. The Raptors ended up winning the title that year. I think if Philadelphia ended up winning that series, they were good enough. Now, the Hawks series, that's a lesser team that they lost to. Ben Simmons basically, had a meltdown in the middle of the series there.
But what if Ben Simmons doesn't have a meltdown?
Right. So, no, but he did. But my point is, Ben Simmons, if he just shot 50% from the free throw line, the Sixers sweep the Hawks in that series. So, realistically, they were way better than that Hawks team. It took a historically bad performance by Ben Simmons, and it was the start of Simmons basically unraveling into the player that has sadly become what he is now. But everybody talks about the Hawks. Yeah, that was a disappointing loss in the Hawks series, but you literally had to have a guy have a historically it was the worst free throw shooting performance in NBA history.
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, some of this conversation is, I can't blame Daryl Morey, Mike, for every single reason why they haven't gotten out of the second round.
Well, Morey, I don't even know was he even here for the Hawks series? Yeah, well,
he was. It was Doc Rivers.
Yeah, but was he? Because Simmons was on the team then. Was that the year?
Morey was hired in 2020.
Yeah, but what year was the Hawks series? I guess that was 2021. Was that 2021? And then Simmons the next year. Yeah, I guess he was here, and then Simmons asked out after that. I was going to say, because I thought he didn't have a chance to ever actually have Simmons on the team.
Yeah, the 7-game series was the Hawks series. It was the 2021 playoffs.
Yeah, so it was his first full year here.
Yes, first full year.
Morey's first full year here. Yeah, that series is inexcusable to lose to that Hawks team. But, again, your point, like somebody said, the Hawks series, not every time you lose in the second round are you good enough. But everybody says because you can't get out of the second round, then you're not good enough. The year that they lost to the Raptors, that team was good enough that if they would have won that series against the Raptors, they could have won a title with that particular team, the Jimmy Butler team, that one. They lost a series to the Celtics a couple times where the Celtics teams ended up going to the finals a couple of those times. If the Sixers win that instead of the Celtics, do the Sixers then go to the finals?
Maybe.
Possible. That's my point is, so you look at this series right now. If the Celtics get knocked out in the second round by the Knicks, are we going to sit here and say that the Celtics are not good enough to win a title?
No, because what we do is
look on the Western Conference side too, by the way.
Really quick, we do this in sports, Mike. Once you win a championship, we give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's how it works. Charlie Manuel was a bum until he won a championship. Now he's beloved. That's how sports works.
Yeah.
Fans look at that championship as I mean, you got guys like Nicky Earnshaw saying that we need to retire Nick Foles' jersey. Why? Because he won a championship.
Yeah, well, listen, we also get opinions in our head, and we are unwilling to listen to anything to move on them.
Yes.
See, like I always say, listen, I'm not right, you're not wrong. We just don't see things eye to eye, right? I'm not right about Embiid. I'm not wrong about Embiid. I'm not right about Morey. I'm not wrong about Morey. We just don't agree on certain aspects of success. Fans only look at championships as the only microcosm of success or failure. And if you don't win a title, you are a failure.
And what happens is in a city like Philadelphia, everything is amplified because you have a team in the Eagles that now has 2 championships in the last 8 years. So now the ire of the fan, the intensity of the criticism gets amplified because in a city like Philadelphia, they're saying, well, Howie Roseman did it. Why can't you?
Exactly. And there was a long time there where Roseman couldn't, and people wanted him gone.
Right.
And then people will say, you can't compare Morey to Roseman.
Well,
I'm not comparing them to each other. I'm just saying there was a time where Roseman had multiple failures. He had been given many opportunities. He had a ton of regular season success. He had a lot of playoff success. They had been to Super Bowls. They had won playoff games. And people wanted him gone. But they didn't fire him because of his success in the regular season. And then that led to him learning and learning and learning and learning and getting better and better and better. And now nobody wants Howie Roseman fired. So, yes, it's frustrating. By the way, Embiid, without a doubt, should have made it past the second round by now, but you all won't admit that. That's the most jackass thing I've ever heard. He's 1,000% should have been out of the second round by now. Joel Embiid's failures in the playoffs are part of the problem with this team.
Right. I would say in the hierarchy of blame, Embiid is far ahead of Daryl Morey.
Embiid is always at the top of the list. He's the best player on the team. He is always going to be number one on the criticism list. Joel Embiid should be way at the top of the list of the reason why this team hasn't been able to get out of it. Now, he's not singular, but he's number one, right? Ben Simmons' meltdown and failure as a number one overall pick and his inability to develop into that next level of player. He was an all-star level player. Third-team All-NBA player,
right?
Runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. His inability to take that to the next level was a huge reason why this team wasn't able to get there.
Yeah.
Yet Embiid still trumps him as the team's best player.
Because Embiid is the guy.
He's the guy.
Daryl Morey said, we are not winning a championship without Joel Embiid. Well, if Joel Embiid is that level of guy, then when you lose in the postseason and you lose it because Joel Embiid doesn't do his job, I'm sorry, but I'm going to blame Embiid more than I'm going to blame Morey.
Embiid, too. I mean, listen, he has so many reasons why. Earlier on in his career, he turned the ball over a ton. A lot of times he's hurt. He's got the broken face. He's got gas. He's got diarrhea. Right. All of these things. All of the stuff. Now, some of the stuff is, quite frankly, people don't want to admit this because you want your team to win. Sixers just weren't good enough. They had, I think the Hawks series, the Hawks team, they were the better team.
Yes.
Other than the Hawks series where they were clearly the better team, I don't know that they were ever clearly the better team. They might have been close. They might have been slightly better. They were way better than the Hawks team.
Right, like the Hawks, the Raptors series that won 7 games, there was a give and take. The Sixers weren't the better team. The Raptors weren't the better team. They were kind of even.
So moving forward here, I want to hear what Morey has to say here in regards to the future of the team. And one of the things he's asked about here, Can Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey play together? I think this answer is pretty interesting. Take a listen.
Historically, it's been hard. The only way McCain, Tyrese type, your two guards guarding ones and twos, is if you have like a very strong rim protecting big, can make that work. And if we have Joel, we'll be fine. So I do think it works if you have a near elite rim protector, but otherwise I think it's challenging.
That wasn't a glowing endorsement for these two guys. Yeah, if we have Joel, I think we're fine. You have to have an elite rim protector for those two guys to play together, but without that, he pretty much admits that it's challenging.
And I think that also adds to the dynamics of this roster, because what he's basically admitting again is it all comes back to Joel, right, Mike? He goes back to the Joel issue, that the Sixers universe revolves around Joel. And as much as the Sixers love Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey, he's saying, look, you guys can love these guys all you want, but historically, those kind of backcourts are not successful unless they have a guy like Joel behind them protecting the rim.
609-403-0973. One of the things, so that comment there about Maxey and McCain I thought were kind of interesting, right? The fact that those two guys he's not sure could play together. He did say, though, that he thinks Maxey will pair well with this guy.
The defensive progress was hugely encouraging and mega important. I do think he pairs very well with Quentin in terms of like that can be a defensive backcourt that can work. And yeah, I mean, it's a league where you have to play physical and you do have to generate turnovers. And I thought Tyrese took big strides there.
So he thinks, number one, Maxey took strides defensively, but he thinks he could pair well with Quentin Grimes. So that's a pretty big revelation because Grimes, I believe, is a free agent, number one. Number two, is he essentially saying that Maxey and Grimes is going to be your starting backcourt next year?
I think it sounds like to him, if his vision is the lineup next year would be Maxey, Grimes, PG, Joel Embiid, and then fill in the blank.
Yeah, and he went on to say, I mean, one of the things he said is, and we can play that here, that the Sixers are very committed to this.
A team calls asking about Joel or Paul George, saying for a trade of like, here's this, expiring contract, then a couple picks. But is that something that the front office would consider moving on from and refocusing on the next generation, or?
We're committed to Joel and Paul. I mean, I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, he didn't even want to entertain that question. We are committed to Joel and Paul.
So again, it goes back to the whole people may love Maxey and McCain, but the reality is that this organization, for better or for worse, is saying we are invested in the Embiid and Paul George duo.
By the way, the audio is courtesy of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. He was on there earlier today. One thing that Morey has been criticized for, but he has admitted, and I give him credit for admitting this and acknowledging it, but it's now up to him to fix it, is this.
We're spending a lot of time. What could we have done better? I think I spoke about it after the season. I did get too focused on what are the pieces that are going to help us win a playoff series, and even how we spoke in training camp about getting our key players to the playoffs. It did set the wrong tone, and that will be something that I correct and Coach Nurse corrects.
All right. There's a lot that kind of makes my brain spin a little bit off of what he's saying there. The way he said that to me, I don't know if you guys felt the same way I did when I heard him say this, though. It almost is like this guy's wheels are turning so much that don't expect this team to look anything. Like, I made such a bad mistake, I will never allow myself to go back down that road again, which makes me really interested to see what he does to change the complexion of this team, because there's a lot of things that is going to be difficult. Now, this is coming from someone who has made some trades that have really given this team a lot of flexibility. He talked a lot about the flexibility that they have as a bad team. Next is teams like Phoenix, which is a bad team, and how little flexibility they have, and some others that are teams that had higher expectations but had disappointing seasons, and their ability now, because of the assets that he has attained,
right,
their ability to get out of their problems more so than a Phoenix. He mentioned a couple other teams.
Well, I would go, like, for example, I know a guy that's been mentioned by different NBA analysts, a team that is having problem right now is the Lakers, because they've invested so many pieces into Luka that they now are limited with their roster and their flexibility.
What does everybody think so far about Morey's comments? Good, bad, indifferent? You hate him, like him, don't care about him, want to move on from him? I'm interested to see what everybody thinks. That's coming up on the other side. What does he think about Nick Nurse's role in all this? You'll hear that coming up. Plus football at 4 in 16 minutes from now. We'll look at the key 53-man roster battles with Adam Kaplan. Don't miss it. It's all coming up on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Under pressure, the Sixers they need that ping pong ball to bounce their way Monday night. You'll hear the draft lottery right here on 97.3 ESPN. Nick Nurse is rolling all this. How does Daryl Morey see Nick Nurse moving forward as the coach of this team if he has the right players?
We know that Nick will win a title if he has the horses, like he's done it. And I thought he did a tremendous job last year people forget it was like a challenging year last year too. And, we didn't beat the Knicks, but gave it a run, which, I guess isn't worth a whole lot. But I thought it wasn't on Nick. I see Nick as like, once he has the horses, we're going to be in a good place. That's my belief.
So a pretty big endorsement there for Nick Nurse, right? I mean, he really feels like, hey, we have a championship-level coach here. And we talk about it. You look at last night's game, for instance, the criticism of Missoula, right? Missoula is a guy who's won a championship. Okay, he's won a championship already. And yet he's being criticized for what? He didn't call timeout last night.
Right.
Well, this is a conversation that's been going on throughout the history of basketball. Why didn't you call a timeout? You had one. Well, I didn't want the other team to be able to set up their defense. If you do call the timeout, why'd you call timeout and let the other team set their defense up? He said, hey, listen, the play worked. The time down the court before went right down the court, scored 2 easily with Jason Tatum, slam dunk down the middle, the C parted. That second time they came down, give them credit. On the court, Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby, they recognized it and changed the way they defended the play. So Missoula, I tell you this all the time about coaches. This is a players' league. The coach knows to stay out of the way here. He's going to let these guys win the game. I ran a play. It worked. Let's see if we can execute it again. We executed it perfectly last time. We got to give the Knicks credit now. They, on the fly, executed the defense perfectly. So you look at what Nick Nurse does, they obviously say, hey, this is a guy that what he's doing with this team and in the locker room, many times people, I would say this, I think NBA teams would hire a guy who has command of the locker room over an X and O guy.
100%. Every
time. If you told me, hey, I'm the best X and O guy in the world, but I don't have any control of the locker room, and the other guy says, well, I don't come up with very many plays, but I guarantee this team will buy into me, the team's going to hire the guy that the team will buy into.
Mike, one of the greatest dynasties in basketball history was literally that. The assistant coach was Tex Winter, the X and O guy. Phil Jackson was the culture guy. They won 6 titles with the culture guy, but the X and O guy was the assistant.
Yeah, I listen. I think Morey he's on the hot seat. There's no question, and he deserves to be on the hot seat here. You can't get away in this town with back-to-back seasons like that.
Right.
His track record of success, I get it. It's very regular season success. I mean, it's funny. You get to the Western Conference Finals multiple times. Now that's not good enough. Like, what is the line of demarcation? Does it have to be only a championship makes you successful?
Pretty much.
Does getting to the finals give you any cred?
Depends on who you are. if we like you already or not.
Yeah, like Dallas made the finals last year. So does Nico, is he like considered good or not?
He is considered, jury is still out.
I just don't know where people's like minds are. I'm trying to get a feel of like, Morey is a guy who's won a lot of regular season games. He's been to the Western Conference Finals twice. And by the way, he went to the Western Conference Finals and he happened to lose to one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the NBA. He must really stink at his job.
I think also
really good. It's really good observations by people out there. He lost to the Warriors. In fact, he had the Warriors on the ropes and then lost Chris Paul in that series.
Again, it goes back to...
So if he would have beat the Warriors then, would he then have been a good GM?
Maybe. But I think it goes back to what you said before, Mike. He talks, he looks, he acts a certain way, and people have a predisposed opinion of him.
I'm interested in that. If they would have gone to the finals against the Warriors, beat the Warriors, and got to the finals, would beating those Warriors teams at that time, which were two of the greatest NBA teams of all time, would that have had people say, you know what, Morey put together a pretty damn good team that beat that Warriors team? Or does he still get like, nah, he stinks. He's never won anything. That's how dumb people sound. You understand that? More Sports Bash coming up. 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here. We're taking a look at the 53-man roster, who's in, who's out, as we see it right now. With the Eagles getting ready for the month of May, OTAs are on the way. The battles will begin. We'll dive into it right now with Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast right here on today's Football at 4. He's in for Andrew. Andrew will be on tomorrow's show. What's going on, Adam?
Mike, yeah. So we, Jeff and I actually did two shows. We did the 53-man roster projection early. We did offense and defense, so we did two separate shows. And Andrew has done both. In fact, we just posted his defense within the last hour, so you can get that on YouTube or any podcasting platform. But let's get to my offense. We'll do offense today, and on this coming Tuesday, we'll do the defense. So, I did a lot of research in terms of what have the Eagles done since Nick Sirianni's been here. Now, I know it's Howie Roseman's call in the end. He's personnel control, but Nick has input on terms of who should stay and who shouldn't. So I'm using that as a guide and contracts, guaranteed money, roles that are needed, and what this team looks like from a coaching standpoint. So let's go to quarterback, Mike. It's to me, this is pretty easy. Hurts, I've got Tanner McKee will be the backup. Now, I know some people think that Dorian Thompson-Robinson will be at Kyle McCord. I don't see that. The Eagles do not have a history of keeping four quarterbacks. In fact, at times they've actually sort of played around with two to start a season, then acquired another quarterback off waivers. You might remember the not-so-legendary Ian Book. They traded for Gardner. They actually had Flacco, and they had Flacco backing up Hurts, and then traded for Gardner Minshew, and then 2 months later traded Flacco. So they have a history of sort of juggling the quarterback situation. So we're going to go with Hurts, McKee, and McCord right now as the three quarterbacks.
All right, so the quarterback spot, yes, you're right. There will be a battle for at least the third spot, maybe the second. Who knows? Can somebody supplant Tanner McKee? That will be something. Probably not, right? As you said, kind of a shock here. Running back, we know Barkley gets a plethora of the touches there. Last year, you had Kenny Gainwell here. He is now gone. Who remains?
Yeah, Micah, don't forget, he's very important to third down for them. They don't really have anyone who protects well. That's something when we'll be looking to their remaining roster needs. That's certainly one of them. So now I have to explain this one because there are some moving parts here. Barkley, obviously. A.J. Dillon. Now, Dillon didn't play last season, Mike, as you know. In the regular season, he had the neck issue. He's cleared. He's ready to go. They really need him to be Barkley's backup because, Mike, let's face it, the Eagles are going to be a good team. In the fourth quarter, if they've got a 2+ touchdown lead, you like to pull Barkley and let Dillon salt the game away. And that's why he's there. He's around 240 pounds. So that's 100% why he's here, to help Barkley out, give him a breather. Will Shipley's got good juice, explosiveness, but he needs to get stronger physically. He's got to show that he can protect. And then, okay, will they keep a fourth back? Now, remember, Mike, Avery Williams is a coverage player on special teams. He's a kickoff returner and punt returner. So if they're going to keep four, that's the area where he will go under. I know some people would like them to somehow keep Montreal Johnson, the undrafted rookie, out of Florida. I get that, but guys, there are only so many spots here. You don't need 5 running backs. Avery Williams is a running back by trade. Now, could he line up as a slot receiver? Sure. He's going to be a gadget player. They're going to figure out a way to get the ball in his hands. Sirianni made that very clear at their owners' meetings. When he beamed about this guy, he probably talked more about him than anyone. But that's it. Those are the 4 running backs on my offensive depth chart here.
All right, so Barkley, Dillon, Shipley, Avery Williams. And we talked a little bit about Avery on Tuesday, that he will probably be the main punt return guy replacing Cooper DeJean, who did that primarily last year because of the injury. Why is his name?
Britton Covey.
Yeah, Britton Covey, right now. All right, well, Britton Covey was in the wide receiver room last year. He will not be in that room this year. Who will be the guys in that room? This one will be interesting.
Yeah, this is wide open. Boy, Jeff threw a zinger at me. Now, I for whatever, I gave him some information, then he changed his mind. But he actually originally had Danny Gray making it. I just, again, it's a numbers problem. Now, I'll say this. After A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jahad Dotson, it is wide open for the 4th and 5th spots. So right now, I would have it. Terrace Marshall, they gave $25,000 fully guaranteed at signing. That's very little. That's not going to keep him on the roster. But he was a former second-round pick who could run, who's got good size. Johnny Wilson, we call the blocking receiver. He's going to have to improve, Mike. He's got to show he could be on the field for more than blocking. But right now, I would have Anais Smith. Now, he could challenge for the punt return job. He did at Texas A&M. And he's only a slot receiver. That hurts him, Mike. They don't really use the slot much in their offense. Now, we'll see what Kevin Patullo, the new offense coordinator, does. So that means I don't have Danny Gray on it. That's it, Mike. I mean, again, you can't keep everybody, but I'll tell you what. Who knows? There could be a surprise at training camp for the fourth and fifth jobs. Could Giles Jackson, who caught the ball really well in their rookie camp. I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in rookie camp because no returning players are allowed to participate. But still, they did sign him as a tryout player. Elijah Cooks has got really good size. So, and Danny Gray, who could run, who was a third-round pick for the Niners in years past. So there's an opportunity for someone to come out of nowhere to make the roster as a back-end player.
Yeah, so no Anais Smith on that roster for you. That's five. Brown, Smith, Dotson, Terrace Marshall, and Johnny Wilson. No Anais Smith, who was a draft choice last year. Well, we got the news yesterday, Adam, and if you want, you can expand on Goddard returning and how that all came about, and now what that room looks like with Goddard officially back in the fold.
Yeah, so as I told our Patreon members the last 2 weeks, I said, look for Goddard to come back on a reduced deal, and he's not getting an extension. Now, he wanted a new deal, other teams told us. Let's put it this way. There were teams out there that would have given an Eagles a far down the road future pick, but getting a contract done with him would have been hard. Mike, again, he's so good when he plays. He is 30 years old now. He's had a significant injury history. The Eagles had leverage here. But the bottom line is here with Dallas Goedert, he's back. He's really good. And he'll help them because they have, listen, Mike, they have 7 tight ends on the roster. But if you take Goddard off of it, you got 6. None of them can start. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to, when you just won the Super Bowl, why would you take a step back if you don't have to? And look, they didn't draft a tight end, Mike. That was to me the lock here that he wasn't going to go anywhere, and they didn't make a trade for one. They did sign a bunch of free agents, but again, they didn't add anyone of significance. And Dallas Goedert's back. And then to round it off, before we get to the offensive line, as Jeff reminded me, I totally forgot about Ben Van Sumeren transferring to fullback. They don't have plans to play him at linebacker anymore. And how about Jeffrey Lurie? You know, he went on record in Philly radio talking about how they want to reinvent the fullback. That kind of surprised me, Mike, that Jeffrey said some stuff every once in a while that you go, wow, okay. Van Sumeren is very athletic, Mike. Now he's coming off major knee surgery, so we have to see how he looks, but they're going to continue to use the fullback, and boy, did he look good last year when he did it.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jeffrey Lurie did say, yes, we want to bring the fullback back. Van Sumeren was here. And then when Van Sumeren got hurt, they brought another fullback in last year. So that kind of rings true that they want that position on the team, right?
Oh, yeah, Kerry Blasingame, who blocked for Derrick Henry. And also the other 2 tight ends. I have 3 tight ends. So I have Goddard, Calcaterra, and Harrison Bryant. Harrison Bryant is super underrated. It would not surprise me if he winds up beating out Calcaterra for the 2 job. I know it's something we haven't really talked about. Bryant blocks better. He runs after the catch. He's a former Mackey Award winner. I remember talking to Charlie Weiss, the former Patriots offense coordinator, about him when Bryant was coming out for the draft. So, yeah, I like him. Folks, you're going to hear a little bit more about him in training camp. Get used to hearing about Harrison Bryant pushing Calcaterra. I expect that to happen. At least he's going to push him in training camp.
All right, Adam Kaplan's with us here, and we're looking at the Eagles 53. This is obviously ahead of the OTAs. They're going to be starting here soon. The offensive line, we know the 5 start. Well, we know 4 of the starters, we think. There's 1 opening on that offensive line. We'll see where you think that's going to go. But there's a lot of new names in here. They drafted multiple offensive linemen. So what's the tackle room? Because they did lose their swing tackle.
Yeah, Mike, boy, this backup group is interesting. I'll say that. I don't know how good it's going to be. But so past the 4 starters that are locks, let's go right to left. At right tackle, obviously Lane Johnson starting, potential Hall of Fame player. In fact, that I would say he would get in, but some voters might have a problem with the suspensions early in his career. But Lane's a great football player. Cameron Williams, he's going to be a right tackle only. He was a 6th-round pick. He's a major project. Right now I have him on the roster. Howie has a history of keeping his draft picks. At right guard, let's face it, Mike, at right guard, this thing with Kenyon Green here, Kenyon Green is going to challenge Steen, as you know, for the right guard job. I expect that to happen. I'm going to, boy, you know what? We're not picking starters now, but I just feel like that. I know that the Eagles loved him for that draft. I know he'd graded out poorly. I get that, but Tyler Steen has been wildly inconsistent. But those two guys are now competing for right guard, right? And Dickerson obviously is a left guard. Cam Jurgens obviously starts at center. He's coming back from the back surgery. Now, Drew Kendall, I'm told, he could play guard in an emergency, but you don't want him playing that. You want him playing center. He's just not super strong physically. So it figures right now, Mike, that's right. That's the right side. That's the guards. And at left tackle behind Mailata, you got Kendall Lamb, who right now is a swing tackle, and Miles Hinton, who, by the way, can play right or left tackle. And I only have 10 offensive linemen because, again, you can't keep everybody. Now, that might be a surprise to people. How could you not keep Matt Pryor? Well, I get that. He's not making a lot of money, but he's very cuttable. Harry likes keeping his draft picks. And, yes, Pryor has positional versatility. He could play 4 positions. That one's going to come down on the wire here. I mean, can they keep 11 offensive linemen? Yeah, but then you got to tell me who else are they cutting? And that's why right now I have 10 offensive linemen only.
You're right, and you have 10 offensive linemen, 5 wide receivers. Is 5 normally the number, or is that at 6?
Mike, I only have 5 because I'm going to go a little heavier on defense. We'll go over that on Tuesday, because it's much harder, Mike. I could tell you. Because Jeff and I had to put together show formats, and it took me, you keep having like 3 or 4 different projections on defense, because you can make the case, as we'll talk about on Tuesday, wow, boy, I think they have to keep 6 edge rushers, not 5. Oh, boy, they're really not good at inside backer. Maybe I'll keep that light. Oh, wow, they might have to keep 4 safeties, maybe even 5. Oh, boy, they could keep 65 defensive tackles here. So it's a lot harder. And when we're doing this in May, we call it, obviously the too early roster projection. We do it because every year it's interesting to look back. Jeff had the all-time call when he did this 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he cut Greedy Williams. And I told him, dude, they signed him to be like the 3rd corner. How are you doing this? Well, he was right. In fact, Greedy Williams he wound up never playing again after the Eagles cut him, which is just incredible. Remember, he was a former 2nd-rounder from the Browns.
Remember that. All right, Adam Capps, we'll get you out of here. I saw today Pro Football Focus had their biggest need for each team. ESPN also did. They had different answers. One said the number 3 wide receiver is still the biggest hole. The other says edge rusher. Would you agree with either of them, or do you have a different answer?
I don't agree with either. We're going to do remaining positional needs for the Eagles on both sides of the football next week. But off the top of my head, well, who are they going to sign? Jahan Dotson, they're into him for over $2 million. That's fully guaranteed this season. It's not a lot of money, but again, they're going to be heavy 12 personnel. They're going to be a low volume pass team. How do you make a lot of us said last season? Oh, they need to improve at 3rd receiver. Okay, they made the trade for Jahan Dotson. Okay, that he came on late. He wound up helping them a little bit. They gave up a little bit too much to get him, but he helped them. But Mike, they don't throw the 3rd receiver. How do you justify it? It doesn't make any sense to me. Edge rusher, well, I would say this: they have too many of them. But remember, Bryce Huff, he's making a minimum of $16.75 million. He could make up to $17 million, but they're into him for $16.75. Mike, he's still on the roster. Nolan Smith, Jalen Son, Azeez Ojulari, who's got a lot of upside. Uche, who's a 1-year deal, and Powell Ryland. Well, who are you getting? I don't get. I don't think people think this thing through. Now, if you want to tell me if their biggest need on both sides of the football is corner, I'm not going to disagree with you. Honestly, they need an upgrade over Ringo and Adoree Jackson on paper right now. It doesn't look very good. Now, I know in our Patreon chat last night, a lot of the folks thought that that shouldn't, like, they could get away with it because if their pass rush is as good as we all think it's going to be, the left cornerback job won't be a big deal. I get that. Now, you never want to accept that you're not very good at a position, and we'll see how good these guys are. And by the way, we do a live chat every week for 45 minutes to an hour, patreon.com/InsideTheBirds if folks want to join. But that to me, by far, Mike, I don't think it's even debatable. That by far is the biggest challenge on this football team. What's left corner going to look like? I would not feel very confident in it, but the Eagles are willing to roll the dice with it.
All right. By the way, the Justin Simmons stuff will not go away. And Jadeveon Clowney was released today. The Eagles fans see a big name. They want to go after him, but probably unlikely. He's Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, you can get that on all podcasting platforms. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
All right. He's back on Tuesday. Andrew's here tomorrow. The Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, Jadeveon Clowney released today by Carolina. I would probably say hashtag no to that one. Maybe they I like Ojulari. I'm a fan of the Ojulari signing, so I am not like, hey, you got to go out and get another veteran player. But Pro Football Focus put out they think the Eagles' edge rusher spot is one of the biggest needs for them still. ESPN.com, they went with number 3 wide receiver. I would not be shocked if they brought a veteran player into the secondary like Justin Simmons, only because you don't have a safety in that room right now other than Reed Blankenship that's got more than 2 years experience, really. I guess Trisha McCollum, I guess this is his 3rd year coming up. So you can throw him, but he hasn't had a lot of playing time. By the way, Phillies lineup is out tonight. Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Kepler, Real Muto, Bo Marsh is in the 9-hole tonight playing center field, so no Rojas tonight in the lineup. Can't say I'm a fan of that, by the way, for 2 reasons. One, Luzardo's pitching. I want my best defense out there. Anytime Luzardo pitches, look, anytime any of these guys pitch, I want my best defense out there. But especially Wheeler and Luzardo, those 2 guys, I want my best defense. Marsh, a big step down in center field from Rojas, so don't like when Marsh is in the lineup over Rojas, but, that is what it is. It's a right-handed pitcher tonight, and I guess they want to continue to try to keep Marsh. He's had a couple hits the other day. His at-bats are still lousy. He's got no approach up there. He's lost when he goes to the plate. He just overswings. There's too much movement. He's got a lot of wiggle in the hands, front foot constantly tapping. Yeah, Marsh to me has zero approach. I could go without seeing him in the lineup tonight, but that's just me. Go figure. All right, more Sports Bash coming up, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. What else we got today? We got a lot of text messages that have been coming in, 609-403-0973. A lot on the Morey stuff that we played earlier today. Cole from LBI has a long one here. Let me kind of hit on some of these. He says, how many GMs are doing podcasts? I can't answer that question. I don't know how many GMs around the NBA are sitting in and doing podcasts.
Not many. But part of it is because Morey thinks this is the best way to get his message out.
Yeah, he has certainly developed somewhat of a rapport with the Rights to Ricky Sanchez guys. It's almost like a playful friendship, if you will. I don't know who a lot of GMs in the league, literally, I asked the question a lot. Who are, I think the Cleveland GM. Who's the Cleveland GM? Do we know who that is?
Oh, my goodness. Is it Kobe Altman?
Kobe Altman, okay. I think I may have seen him there's a show out there that's on YouTube. I think it's called The Cleveland Show. The guy, Jay something. He used to be a Sports Center anchor. I think he is
So Kobe Altman is actually the president of basketball operations. Their GM is Mike Gansey.
Oh, the former West Virginia guy?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I doubt Mike Gansey's done a lot. To answer Cole from LBI's questions, I don't think there's a lot of GMs doing podcasts. I would certainly agree with that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just another progressive thing from Morey that people don't like.
Yeah, it's
he also, by the way, full disclosure, Morey also did a radio interview today.
He did.
So he did radio, a traditional platform. He also did a podcast. I think most GMs probably don't do a podcast. I don't know that, though. I can't answer that question.
I mean, I would say of the, 30 NBA teams? So I would say probably at least 25 of the 30 would never do a podcast.
I have no clue, so I can't answer that question. I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, it got somebody elected to go on a podcast. Probably a smart move. So maybe going on podcast isn't such a bad idea.
Look, I don't think they're going to the podcast is Morey's problem. I think the problem is that I think no matter what Morey says, people will have a problem with it, and that is always going to be the cloud that hangs over his head.
What else did he add here? He says, I think Morey thinks he's too smart for his own good. What does Embiid will come back at an MVP level and not as a role player even mean? I think it's pretty straightforward. He thinks that if Embiid plays, that he's still an impactful, because he was asked a question about why did you sign Embiid? And his point is, we think Embiid is an MVP level player. And when he comes back, because I think the question was phrased as, do you guys think that he'll still have kind of like the jumps or the hops?
Right. Well, there were two separate questions. The one question was about, is Embiid basically on like the downside of his career? Is he a guy that as he gets older, he's going to be a fading return on the investment you have made in this guy? And Morey's point to that was, look, I don't see him as a fading player at all. I think he's the kind of guy that if he's back on that court, he's going to compete like he's still an MVP caliber player.
Yeah, and he gave some examples. The one example that he gave and went kind of in depth on was Lopez, and said basically Brook Lopez was a guy in his early 30s who had a ton of injury issues and seemed like he was shot, done.
And then Lopez reinvented himself and helped him win a championship.
And here he is in his later 30s, and he's still playing and plays like 80 games a year. So he's basically saying there's a lot of guys who have dealt, and he mentioned Kawhi, saying that, hey, who would have thought when Kawhi pulled out of the Olympics last year that he would have been playing like 40-plus minutes in a playoff game the other night. Right. So, he's given examples of guys who have had some problems injury-wise. Kawhi's had a ton of problems injury-wise.
Tons of injury problems.
He mentions the text message. Cole says he's saying Maxie McCain works with Embiid as a rim protector, but not really Embiid's game, especially with the knee injury. I don't know. I mean, with the knee injury, maybe, but Embiid's a pretty damn good rim protector. He's one of the best rim protectors in basketball when he's healthy. The healthy part is fair to ask, but listen, we as fans just always like, it's health. These guys go in saying, when you're at practice for me and ready to go, you're there. You're healthy. You're accounted for. You're not hurt until you're hurt.
Right.
In my mind, you're not hurt until you're hurt. Like, I can't say you're going to be hurt. What if you're not? I can't plan like that. Like, maybe that's short-sighted. But I'm always planning for what I have right now. What is available to me today? And if I'm building the team with, hey, Joel Embiid signed and he's here, I'm not going to win if Joel Embiid's not there. So I can't build a team one way for Embiid to be here and one way for Embiid not to be here. He's here. He's signed. I got to build with the hope that he stays healthy. And if he doesn't, well, then guess what? I'm SOL, and then I'm fired.
And it doesn't matter.
Right. I don't know how any doctor would have given a good prognosis on a 7-foot, 280-pound man with a meniscus. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but that's not the first time I've heard that. I actually heard that they had like 12 different doctors clear him to play.
And listen, there was that whole issue during the season, and Morey addressed it about how Embiid had a different opinion than some of the doctors were giving advice, and that Morey says, hey, looking back on it now, maybe we should have listened to him. Maybe we should have taken a different approach. But the reality is that I think that there is a perception of Embiid, Mike, and you tell me if I'm verbalizing this incorrectly, but I think the perception of Embiid by the fan base is very different than the perception of Embiid by the organization.
No question. The fan base is tired of him, over him, think that he's soft, thinks he's been a failure. As, he hasn't won what everybody wants, a championship, and therefore you suck. There is no middle ground. You haven't won, you stink. I think the fan base has reached that point with him. Certainly the organization looks at it a little differently. Hey, it's really hard to win a championship. Right. There's a lot of players who have been great players that took them 8 years, 9 years, 10 years to win titles. Fans want it overnight. Organizations have a little bit more patience sometimes, for better or worse. They have the right to be patient. They put a lot of investment into these guys. More Sports Bash coming up, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video on Twitter X and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe, like, watch the show on your home TV, laptop, TV, any device. Listen on your phone on the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. And when we come back, it's today's edition of the Nuggets right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 432 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. It's time for today's Nuggets. They're brought to you by the Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. Nick Earnshaw. He is the host of the Shift podcast and producer of The Locker Room weekends on 97.3 ESPN, and he joins us right now with today's edition of Nick's Nuggets on this Thursday edition. Phil's looking for the sweep tonight. What's going on there, Nuggets?
What's going on, Mike Gill? A lot to talk about, and, we'll talk Sixers. I know it's been a heavy Sixers show with all the stuff Daryl Morey's out there saying and discussing, but there's no way, no how. We have to start. We could not start talking about Taijuan Walker and the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, did you see that last night, Mike? That was incredible. He's back on social media. That got him so fired up. He's back on Twitter, Mike Gill. Taijuan Walker, Nugget number 1 for today. Three innings yesterday of scoreless ball. His first career save. He exceeded 94 miles an hour with that fastball. Remember last year, he was sitting at like 89 miles an hour. It's like, oh, man, what happened? This guy seems to have found his confidence again. I mean, that could be massive. You even had Garrett Stubbs, Mike Gill, text him. He sent his media gaggle before the Iron Pigs game tonight that he even texted Taijuan Walker last night and said, that was sick. I mean, that's awesome. That's a Stubbsy thing to say. But Taijuan Walker, I mean, listen, Mike, it's early on in the season. It's May, but he's looked much, much better as of late. And listen, if he can fit into that bullpen role as kind of a swing man, you can use him for 2 innings, maybe an inning here or there, and lock it down. I mean, that could be a real weapon for the Philadelphia Phillies if he is pitching up to par, maybe not necessarily as a starter, but as kind of this swing guy. You can never have too many pitchers at all, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and get too excited about Walker. I thought he was
excited. You got to get a little excited.
I opened the show with him, and I said how impressed I was with him.
Yes.
I'm allowed to be impressed with you one day, but not have high expectations. Professional athletes, some days they're good, some days they're not. You're supposed to look at the whole picture. For me, his whole picture has exceeded expectations. Now, if we're going to be talking in September, am I going to look back and say, man, Taijuan Walker exceeded my expectations? Maybe, but I'm not confident on that. Now, what I took away from last night was 2 things. 1, I feel that Walker went into this night last night and accepted his role, and that is a big thing. Hey, I'm willing to take this on, and I want to be great at this. So he went out there and accepted that I'm in the bullpen now. He could go into the bullpen and not be happy with it, say, hey, I'm not really a relief pitcher. No, this looked like a guy who was willing to accept his role to help this team out, and that's what impressed me. His fastball, he doesn't have an overpowering fastball. He's like 94, but he spotted it well. He had good release, good splitter last night. That's the pitch for him that he needs to have going. And as we talked about before, he is a guy that had a great run in 2023. In June and July, he was phenomenal for them. He basically saved their season. Can he do that in a new bullpen role? Now, he threw 3 innings last night. When's the next time you're going to be able to use him again now? So I'm not all ready to jump on and say Walker is saving this bullpen, but he gave him a great outing last night.
No, and it's not necessarily saying for the whole season he's going to be great. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm trying to say, and I'm with you for most of your point that you made, is that the fact that his confidence is back, and the point you made is that he accepted his role. He knows, hey, I haven't performed since I signed this contract as much as they thought I would, and I understand what my role is with the rest of the pitching on this team. He absolutely looked like that. And he looked like he had a little bit of sparkle last night, Mike.
Absolutely. When he threw and the follow-through, when he had the follow-through, he's kicking the leg up like, zing, like he looked like he was, you remember these closers back in the 90s who would throw and they're kicking and like, as they striking guys out, they're like prancing off the mound. Like he had that look to him last night like, dude, I kind of like this. I can just let loose for, when you're a starter and you're a reliever, there's a big difference in terms of, hey, the starter has to kind of, work his way to try to get through the game. The reliever, hey, give me your best stuff for 1 inning, 2 innings, max. So you can kind of max out and give everything you have for that 1 inning or 2 innings. And if Walker can kind of command that part of it, that's a big addition for them. But I don't know that there's any evidence. When can he pitch again? He already is not going to pitch tonight or tomorrow, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So that minimizes him as a key bullpen arm.
I'm looking at this, like, if he can really figure it out and become kind of this swing pitcher, right, for the Phillies, if there's injuries, he could start. That would be huge. That would be huge if they could have him.
Realistically, though, a good team doesn't have a swing pitcher. You know why? Their starters don't need guys to piggyback. Can he be a piggyback guy? The starters on this team are too good. They don't need a piggyback guy. They need a right-handed pitcher at the back end of a bullpen. I don't need a swing guy. I don't need a piggyback. I need a dominant arm at the bullpen. Let's have higher expectations here. A swing man means my starter got knocked out in the 4th inning. A piggyback guy is, hey, I need someone to throw 3 innings because my starter couldn't last.
Yeah, but you look at this down the line, right, in the postseason, having that type of guy in the playoffs, that's huge, having a player like that could go 3 innings in case you get into trouble or something. And you can't have enough pitching, Mike. I'll take anything. I will take as much pitching as possible. And if he can fit into this kind of role, I am cool with that. I am fine with that. And listen, their pitching staff great. They have tons of pitching. Drew Painter winning in the wings. I mean, this can allow them to utilize rare trade and really make it expendable.
Hold on. You got a bad connection. You're all over the place right now. Probably because you're praising Taijuan Walker is probably one of the reasons why you're breaking up on everybody. But, yeah, listen, if Walker gives you anything, that's a bonus. A swing guy in the playoffs, I don't agree with that. If you need a swing guy in the playoffs, that means you're in trouble. You should want your starting pitchers with this group of starters. They should be pitching into the 7th inning. You're hoping with these guys to be your best. You got Nola, Wheeler, Luzardo, Sanchez. Those guys are getting you hopefully into the 6th, 7th inning. You shouldn't need a bridge guy to get you 3 innings in the playoffs. That's my point with Walker is he hasn't been on this team. They haven't given him a chance to be on the roster in the playoffs the last couple of years. There's no role for a swing guy come playoff time. You don't need that guy who's just kind of waiting around. Now, if you do, that means your team's in trouble. So your hope is that Walker doesn't have a role unless he becomes a guy who finds a role later on in the game. If you're in the playoffs, I want my starter to get me through 7 innings. I don't want my pitcher to pitch 4 and have to go to Taijuan Walker to throw 3. That's the way I'm looking at it. So if Walker's filling that role, that's bad news.
No, I hope I got a good connection again because I was praising Taijuan Walker for a little bit there, Mike. And listen, I think I understand that it would be bad news if he has to come in and clean a mess up. I understand that. But to have extra pitching and utilize Walker, I'm going to take as much pitching as I possibly can. Different roles, doesn't matter. I love that if he can figure it out, it's great. I'm
not asking to get rid of the guy. I'm okay with him being on the team and doing what he's doing. I'm just saying, like, unless he's going to be a back end of the bullpen guy, I don't feel that role is all that big of a necessity, hopefully, for this team. Unless he morphs into, hey, man, I can be the guy that you can go to in the 8th inning. I don't know that that's going to be the case.
Well, I mean, remember a couple of years ago, 2022, Zach Eflin turned into the bullpen right after the injuries, etc. You're going to get that out of Taijuan Walker. I wouldn't mind that at all if you could get.
I wouldn't mind it either. We're also talking about a guy who had an ERA about 8 last year. So that's
2.30 right now. 2.30 right now.
Listen, I love the excitement that people get off of. Number one, he faced the Marlins last night. Keep that into play too. So I'm just saying.
The race. Listen, it's something. It's a little bit of something. You can get excited for the guy. Look, he's back on social media. The guy is confident. Sometimes that's all you need as a pitcher. We'll see how it shakes out the rest of the year. All right, moving along. Nugget number 2. We got to talk about Daryl Morey. He's all over the place. He's doing a press run. That's great. He said something interesting on the Rights to Ricky. And I want to play this clip, and it's regarding Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, and them all being together on the floor. Take a listen to Daryl Morey.
The way we're winning it is with Joel Embiid getting healthy and playing at a high level with really top players around him like Tyrese and Paul.
That's it. That's literally it. That's the gist of what he's been talking about on his press run. Like, that's all you need to know. That's it. Because everyone knows that, though. Everybody knows that they need the 3 stars to be healthy to compete. That's a big if. That it's nothing that Daryl Morey can control. Yes, he can control the other stuff and signing younger players, et cetera. I know he got into that, but it all comes down to health. And how many years in a row have we been talking about the health of Embiid, the health of the other players, the supporting players, the Paul Georges of the world? It's all about health. And if they don't stay healthy, this won't work again. And it's happened over and over and over.
It's really the only way they can swing this year.
Yep.
They have no value for George or Embiid at this point. Embiid might get you something, but not optimal value. Their only plan is to return with these guys and hope they're healthy. Unless you're just ready to give up, they have to take another swing with this group. That's what they invested in. Like Paul George, who has been injury prone in his past, he had a freak injury last year. He tore the tendon in his pinky. If he tears a tendon in his pinky again this year, yes, that would be a problem. I don't envision that happening. I think that was part of the reason why he had the worst shooting percentage of his career. So they have to say, listen, we did not get what we thought we were getting from Paul George based on an injury that was unforeseen. Now, you might say he's had injury problems. That is fair. None of those injuries was the reason that he missed a lot of time. That pinky was the problem, and then the preseason game, he tripped over the guy and ended up like it was just ridiculous. So I understand why they would look at it and say the things that happened to him were very unforeseen. Let's take another chance with these guys because, in large part, they don't have any value right now. We're not getting what we would want for them. So they have to have that messaging.
Yeah. Listen.
The problem with that messaging is it's not very popular.
No. And by the way, you mentioned the unforeseen injuries, right? Came out of left field. Every injury that these players get on the 76ers are all unforeseen injuries. Every single one of them. I mean, especially with Joel Embiid, they just have the worst luck. I mean, it's all based on that at this point. The 76ers literally have the worst luck of all time, it feels like. How about a few years ago when Embiid's face broke? He had Bell's palsy, the knee, everything. I mean, you cannot write a better script in Hollywood than what the Sixers have gone through with some of their injuries. I mean, you can't make it up. That's the issue here. I don't know how else you fix it at this point. Hopefully the lottery gives them good odds. You're crossing your fingers. Hopefully you get that top pick and you get a really good player, at least in the top 5, so you don't knock it over to Oklahoma City. But, man, has this team had bad luck? Hopefully the Flyers took some of it because they're at 6 in their lottery. The 76ers need a little bit of help here with getting a top player in this year's draft. Have to.
Yeah, they have to. And, listen, there's been so many bizarre things that have happened. You can't even
make it up.
You would say you are making it up. Like, there's no way that the things that have happened that we all have witnessed, you can't even say that they're actually true. They just seem made up. Embiid's injury history is bizarre. Somebody tweeted out earlier this year, there's been 15 broken orbital bones in NBA history, and he has 3 of them.
It's not real. Like this, you can't write this down and think of something like this. Nobody can. It's not real. I mean, the stuff the Sixers have gone through, yeah, let's just hope they're healthy. Let's hope something doesn't go wrong like it usually does. We'll find out with the rest of the year. That's the essence of all the Morey stuff with today. All right, moving on. Nugget number 3. And speaking of basketball, I want to stay in the NBA. Did you catch any of that Knicks-Boston game last night? That was a doozy coming down the stretch for sure. I mean, the Knicks were down like 20 at one point. It was ridiculous. So I want to pose this question because I can't stand watching those games because it's Boston and New York. Would you rather Boston come back and find a way to get a second title this year in a row, or would you rather see the Knicks claim their first title in years since the 70s this year? If you had to pick between the two as a Sixers fan, what would you pick, Mike Gill?
It's an awful. Oh, that one's an awful choice there. I'm hoping
like you're picking between ketchup or mustard. Which one you dip in? I hate both.
I don't like ketchup, so that's an easy answer for me. I'm rooting for the Knicks in this series. I thought the Celtics would win the series. I still kind of think the Celtics will win the series. I despise both teams, but I like the Knicks roster of players better. I think I would pick, though, if between your two choices, because of course I would like the Knicks to get knocked out in the next round versus the Pacers or the Cavs. So I think I would rather Boston wins their second title than the Knicks winning the title. I want the Knicks to win the series, but I don't think I want to see them win a title because their fans are way more obnoxious because the Boston fans aren't close enough to feel their obnoxiousness.
I have a Knicks fan. It's close to home to me because I have a Knicks fan that called me last night at 10:45 at night. 10:45 at night. I'm trying to go to bed here, Mike Gill, okay? And I, on the phone, started singing the New York Knicks theme song. I was ready to rip my hair out. I can't stand the Knicks. I can't stand their fans. They are the Cowboys of the NBA to me. And I hate Boston, too. Don't get me wrong. I hate Boston. But over the past 2 years, watching this team, they aggravate me so much. I can't take it. I think I would probably go Boston. I'd probably go Boston, take your second title. You have plenty of them anyway. Fine, take another title. You're fine.
Yeah, I'm used to Boston winning, so I can handle the feeling of that. And again, their fan base is far enough away that you don't have to really feel and hear it. The New York fan base would be unbearable to have to deal with if they won a title. So while I am rooting for the Knicks to win this series, I'd rather Boston win again than the Knicks win the whole thing.
Yeah,
now,
I can't take those fans. I can't take them.
I think the Knicks would get past the Pacers.
I agree.
Or the Cavs. Now the question is there a Western Conference team? Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Golden State. Who's the other team that's left over? Denver. I think Denver's going to get knocked out. That would they beat the Knicks and that we wouldn't have to worry about it?
Well, I have a pact with this Knicks guy that I would have to go to the parade and be miserable all day if they did win. So I have a lot going, a lot riding on the Knicks not winning, and I can't take it. I cannot take their fans. They remind me of Cowboys fans. They're like a newer version of Cowboys-type fans. They're nauseating. Awful. So I'm going Boston, and it's lesser two evils because I can't stand watching the series.
They have been pretty irrelevant for a long time. So Boston's at least they've been good and relevant for years. You just kind of like accepted that now. To have to add the Knicks into relevancy is a tough pill to swallow.
And the problem with their fans taking over the Wells Fargo Center the past 2 years, it's been just a disgusting display watching that happen every single year. So yeah, that one I'm going to go with Boston. Boston's won how many titles in the past 20 years anyway? So I would pick Boston of the lesser of two evils with this diabolical question that I concocted today.
I would agree. Yeah, you maybe have to actually, again, I'm rooting for the Knicks to beat the Celtics here because I want to see the Celtics get knocked out. I can't. It's hard too because Joe Mazzulla is the coach. He was one of my favorite players at West Virginia. I loved him when he was at West Virginia. I just found out, by the way, that former West Virginia great Mike Gansey is the GM in Cleveland for the Cavaliers. I did not know that. I can't believe I missed that. But Mazzulla is the most unassuming guy to have been as a West Virginia player to be the head coach of the Celtics. So I do have a little bit of a soft spot for him. I loved him at West Virginia. I loved Gansey too. He was on that Gansey. I don't know if you remember when Gansey and Pittsnoggle, they had that run. The West Virginia teams had some runs there in like the early 2000s.
Was that
mid 2000s?
I was like a young buck at that point. You
don't remember Kevin Pittsnoggle?
No, I don't remember watching Kevin Pittsnoggle. I remember Scotty Reynolds, all these Villanova guys, going to the Knicks. And by the way, the new Pope's from Villanova.
Saw that.
So there's that.
Well, Kevin Pittsnoggle is like one of those classic college basketball names. Like
that is a great
he's in
name.
your life for 4 years, and you're like Pittsnoggle, just a big doofy white guy. He just shot threes. He was like 6'10", a little overweight for a basketball player, and he would just drain threes all day long. They went to like this. They had a team that went to the Final Four. I don't know if he was on that team or not. I think he might have been off.
I gotta
not
look
on
this
that
up
team.
afterwards. I'll text you.
He's like a high school principal now, or a gym teacher. Or something.
How about that? All right, Mike. That's the Nuggets today.
All right, there's Nuggets today. They're brought to you by the Hub Gear that works as hard as you do. Kevin Pittsnoggle, Mike Gansey. That was the West Virginia duo that year. All right, tell us what you think about Daryl Morey's comments. We played them earlier today on the Sports Bash. He was on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. Coming up, Phillies win last night. Can they make it a sweep? The lineup is out. We'll get some thoughts on the Phils. What's the biggest positional need now for the Eagles now that Dallas Goedert is back? What is something that Howie Roseman still needs to do? Eagles roster battles. We'll dive into all that in the 5 o'clock hour on the drive home here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City and live on Twitter X and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. All right, 5 o'clock, Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, hanging out with you till the top of the hour. We got a lot happening. I want to hear from you this hour, me and you hanging out together, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Couple topics on the table. You can get in board. We played a lot of Daryl Morey's comments from the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast earlier. Thoughts on Morey's comments? Sixers have the lottery Monday night, so it's a big night for them coming up. We'll probably talk to Paul Hudrick or something tomorrow as we get ready for that, or Monday. Also, get your thoughts on the top Eagles roster battle as they get ready for OTAs coming up in just a little bit. Let us know what roster battle you are most intrigued by, and where do you think they still need some help? 609-403-0973. And then finally, Phillies keep on winning. Walker last night, Taijuan Walker, really had a big appearance for the Phillies. 3 innings, 7 strikeouts. And the Phils getting ready for the sweep tonight. We have the lineup for you. If you're watching on the X platform, Twitter, and YouTube, you can check out the Phillies lineup over there. I'll get you that lineup in just a second. You know, last night is another game where the Phillies have a pitching performance from, I thought Sanchez was good last night. I don't think he was great. You might say he gave up 1 hit. He had 3 walks. His command wasn't great. 8 first pitch strikes. I think that's something to take a look at as well, where all the first pitch strikes, not a lot of first pitch strikes. He was working from behind a lot last night. So I thought Sanchez but that's a good thing. They won the game with him 1 hit, shutout. A shutout. Now, that's piggybacked with Taijuan Walker being a big part of this. I mentioned this after Walker's last start where he pitched really well and then he got pushed to the bullpen. Did Taijuan Walker do enough in his 6 starts to have any trade value? I don't know about that. I don't really think – put it this way. I don't think Taijuan Walker is getting you any major league player. I don't think Taijuan Walker is going to a team – first off, let me explain this to you, all right? This is how I see it anyway. Normally, when you trade, you're trading with a bad team, right? Your team's out of it. You're giving me a player that you no longer want to pay. He's not a part of your plans anymore. Why would a bad non-playoff team want to take on Taijuan Walker? So those teams seemingly are out. Now, I would say if you think that there's a good team that is so desperate for pitching that they would take on Taijuan Walker, that might be an avenue. Hey, Baltimore. Does Baltimore think that they are able to get back in this? Baltimore is a team that's won over 100 games. They've won the division. They're 7.5 games out there, 10 games under 500. Are they already saying, hey, we're done? They're minus 69. Their pitching's atrocious. I don't know. Does Baltimore think they're a contender still, but they need pitching? I can't imagine that they're sitting around and saying, you know who might help us is Taijuan Walker. So I don't think even a team like Baltimore, who's a playoff caliber team that needs pitching and is also willing to spend $18 million for it, because you got to pay Taijuan next year $18 million and then finish out whatever you got to pay him this year. So you got to look for teams like that, teams that are, Boston, they need some pitching. Houston Astros, they probably could use some pitching. The Texas Rangers, they probably would be. But do they want to pay Taijuan? The problem is Taijuan Walker just isn't pushing the pile. I don't think he's enough to say, we're a team that's right there. We just need an arm, and he's the guy. I think what my mind with Taijuan Walker says is he needs so much goodwill to cover for what he did last year to convince a team to take a shot on him. And I don't know that what he's done in 6-7 games this year is enough to take the sting off of what he did for you last year.
So before I give you the team that you didn't mention, I think that would have some interest in the scenario that you just described with Taijuan Walker, I will say I do agree with you. I don't think there's any scenario where a team is calling you and be like, hey, I want Taijuan Walker. But there might be a scenario where a team, if you paired Taijuan Walker with a prospect maybe there is a scenario where a team would be willing to have a conversation.
Yeah, and I said that before, like, hey, we'll give you, but you're giving them one of your top prospects.
But again, you gave up, for example, when Ben Brown was traded for Dave Robertson. I know I keep going as an example, but I'm saying that's an example of a guy who's not a top 20 prospect in your organization who another team wanted. I have to go through the whole list of all the prospects, but I'm sure there's guys on that list that are much lower on the list, but maybe another team might say, hey, I see a pathway for that guy from my organization.
It's just hard because Ben Brown, you mentioned, they didn't send an $18 million pitcher away with him. Hey, take the $18 million pitcher with
That's
him.
what I'm saying. There's one team that comes to mind.
Who's that?
A team that has already started 11 different starting pitchers this year.
Dodgers.
The Dodgers. They have the money. They have the resources. And if you sweeten the deal by giving them a prospect, maybe they give you something. I'm not saying something great, but I'm just saying that maybe they give you something in return.
See, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around another team wants Taijuan Walker because they're so desperate for pitching. I said Baltimore's one that actually, because they were a playoff team the last couple seasons, they're a really good team. Their pitching's atrocious.
But they're really in the dumps right now.
They're 10 games under 500. You would need them to get back in the race a little bit here. The question is, do they really think Taijuan Walker is an upgrade over anything they have? I know some of their guys have been terrible. Do they want to pay? That's one of their problems. They had some pitching. Not great pitching, but even the decent pitching they had, they didn't want to pay, and they let them walk.
Exactly. And I think that's why I don't look at Baltimore as an option, because I don't see them as a team that wants to spend the money.
No, and listen, they are cheap, number one. They don't want to spend money, and then I don't think they want to, the Phillies' problem right now with Walker is the money that he makes.
Right.
So he's not a fit for bad teams. Like when you make a trade, you're looking at bad teams. Bad teams don't want a veteran pitcher making $18 million. That's where your problem becomes. So you're essentially now looking for good teams to make trades with. Now, do you want to trade with a good team and give them one of your prospects? Like, in other words, what are you trying to get for Walker? Probably a bullpen arm.
That would be the working theory, yeah.
Do we think that Taijuan Walker by himself can get you a major league quality high-end bullpen arm?
I don't think so.
Not even close. So now, as you've mentioned, now you got to kick in a prospect. What level of prospect am I kicking in to a team to take Taijuan Walker, pay him, and give me a high-end quality bullpen arm? That's where this becomes really difficult. Because, again, you're generally going to be dealing with teams that are probably good and can afford them. You mentioned the Dodgers. Okay, that's a team that can understand what you're saying. They have the money. They need some depth because their pitching is just beat up right now. I think Boston's another one of those teams. Boston could use some pitching, and they have, they generally have money. But it's a tough one, man. That's why Walker makes it such a tough angle to try to figure out the right team to fit.
So just to use an example, okay, there's a guy who's number 22 in the Phillies organization, okay? Let's use Christian McGowan as an example. He's a Double-A right now. They still hold his rights through 2026. Is he maybe a guy to tell the Dodgers, look, or whatever team, every team he's pitching, right? To tell a team, look, we'll give you one of these pitchers, right? One of these guys who's in our system, but we just don't, like the Phillies don't tell them this, but maybe the Phillies say, look, we don't foresee this guy being a part of our long-term plans, right? Or we can afford to move on from this guy.
I think it's a tough sell, man, really. I mean, again, you have to, number one, think that other teams have now been won back over by Taijuan Walker. Two, be willing to then pay him for the rest of this year, which is not cheap.
The money part is the biggest obstacle of all.
That's exactly.
It's not his, to me, it's not his performance. Teams trade for hot pitchers all the time. It's the fact that he's under contract next year, which is a big number. If you told me
I would disagree a little bit on the performance. Yes, he's been good this year. He hasn't been great. He's been his whip is not good. He's been in a lot of situations he had to get himself out of.
Sure.
I think the stink of last year looms
Do you
so
think that's
much.
still the hanging cloud over his head? You don't think a team might just be like, look, I don't even care about last year.
Isn't it why nobody wants to believe in him now?
I think right now for the Phillies, for example, they just say that we have 5 pitchers we think are better than him.
Yeah, I agree. But like I said before, he didn't get demoted because of his performance.
Right, he got demoted because there's somebody better than him.
He got demoted because of his resume.
See, to me, he got demoted because there's people who are better than him.
But that's all encompassing. The Phillies signed him for $18 million. They thought he was better than all these guys until they saw him perform. And then they deemed he wasn't. They at one point thought that he was. They didn't need to sign him for $18 million. They already had Ranger Suarez. They already had Christopher Sanchez. They didn't need to sign him for $18 million. They felt that he was better than those options.
Well, at the time, Christopher Sanchez was still developing, so there was a little bit of, they were thinking he was going to be for those who don't remember, he was supposed to be the replacement for Kyle Gibson. He was supposed to be a younger, better version of Kyle Gibson. And for basically a year, half a year, he was.
Yeah, listen, Walker was brought here to be an innings eater, back into the rotation guy, go out there every 5th day, pitch 5-6 innings, and give me a quality start. Not be a Cy Young Award winner.
Right.
Well, he did that for about 2 months, and then he was not very good to the point that in 2023, he did not even get put on the playoff roster. And in 2024, he was so bad that they basically were almost, people wanted to DFA the guy.
Right.
So I think the hangover of how bad he was at the end of 2023, all of 2024, looms over any opinion people have of him. I don't trust that he can get the job done. The Phillies have told you they don't trust him. For 2 years in a row, they paid him $18 million to not be on their playoff roster. How many pitchers getting paid $18 million in a free agent deal are not getting active on the playoff roster?
I can't name any.
Maybe Jordan Montgomery. I don't know if that he made the playoff roster for. They didn't make the playoffs last year.
They didn't make the playoffs last year.
So yeah, I'm just trying to think who pays a free agent pitcher $18 million and then doesn't put him on the playoff roster. So I think that looms for Walker, but I would say his tradability is like 8%.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm sure there's some way. Look, if you're doing your job right, you can try to convince somebody. Listen, Taiwan's a great clubhouse guy. He's taken this whole thing with a grain, in stride. He's pitched well for us. He is an innings eater. You need one. Your team lacks pitching. Come on.
Listen, we can solve this problem one way, Mike. You just get Dave Dombrowski to go into a room with Howie Roseman and Daryl Morey, and they can figure this out together.
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. A couple text messages. Let's rip and read a couple of these and kind of react. Baltimore's the perfect trade partner. Charlie Morton and Kyle Gibson are terrible. Walker's better. I'm not disagreeing with Morton and Gibson being terrible and Walker being better right now. But I don't think Baltimore's the great trade partner. They're cheap. They don't want to spend any money.
Right.
That's part of their problem. They're a good trade partner in that they need pitching.
Right.
And they had playoff aspirations. So, but my challenge with them is if I'm Baltimore and I'm struggling, do I think Taijuan Walker fixes my struggles? That one I have a hard time answering yes to.
Yeah, that's a problem. And again, part of the reason why Baltimore is in the predicament they're in is because they're cheap. So now you're asking Baltimore to do something against their instincts when it comes to money.
Yeah, I don't see Baltimore being a great option because of money. And I just don't think he's a big enough upgrade. Like, is he going to be your number one or number two? You're telling me you're going to trade for a guy, pay him $18 million, and say he's at the back end of my rotation.
And that's why you have to go to the big market teams and say, okay, I got to look for a team that has money to spend, and they're not going to sweat about pinching that money. They're just going to be like, hey, man, we need this, we want this, whatever.
This one says the best thing is if Walker looks good, then they can unload him. Yeah, they can try to get a team to take him. But that's the hard part is Who wants the $18 million? Could Walker be your top-end relief pitcher? Looked dominant last night. I get it. He looked good last night. No, I don't think he can be your – he's not going to go out there and pitch the 8th inning and be your setup man. I don't think so.
No, he's not. And the other problem is that, and I'm not saying this to be overly embellishing anything, but maybe the Rays we thought were better than they are. I think the Rays we're seeing in this series are maybe not as good of a team as we thought they were. So did Walker have a good performance because he had a good performance, or because he was pitching against a below-average baseball team?
Listen, I thought he looked good last night. I did think he looked good. Like, hey, he looks different. He looks good. And I thought it looked like I said, it looked like he bought into, hey, I'm going to accept this role. You know what? I'm going to accept this role, and I'm going to embrace it. Mm-hmm. I thought you have to want to do it. I say all the time, you got to want to bunt.
So you're not worried about the level of the competition last night?
No, they're professionals. I mean, yeah, if you're pitching against, Colorado every single time and your numbers are good, then I might be questioning you. But, yeah, I mean, no. Is Tampa Bay murderer's row? Of course not. No. So it does play a little bit of a factor in that, but he's been pretty solid. Now, I don't know, I think a lot of the times that he has pitched generally have come up against some of the – I got to look back at his
I'm going to pull up his log for you.
I can't believe that Taijuan Walker has sparked this kind of conversation, but guess what? Give him credit. He pitched well enough last night that I said this 2 weeks ago when he made a start, which was, has he pitched well enough that he has entered – you know what else is happening with Taijuan Walker right now? I'll tell you what's happening with him. He is winning people back over.
He is.
We talk about Daryl Morey. Morey's an unlikable guy in terms of when you vision the president of basketball operations, you don't envision an e-gaming looking man.
No, definitely not.
Right? He's wearing, ratty jeans. He's got a T-shirt on. Sometimes he has a T-shirt on. He seems to wear the same blazer all the time, like he only has one.
Like he only owns one?
Right.
Or he owns multiple blazers with the exact same ones. Like he has no other variety in his wardrobe.
Every time I see him, it's like a black and blue checkered blazer. So I feel like Morey's perception is he's unlikable. Mm-hmm. I don't like the way he talks. I feel like he thinks he's the smartest man in the room. He doesn't dress like a GM. All of that stuff. Walker is becoming likable. The other night he makes that play where he's diving on the field and he flips it over. It seems that people are starting to say, hey, this Walker, I kind of like this guy. Right? I kind of like him. So he's winning the people over. It's very important.
It is important, especially in this fan base.
Generally just a mind game. Like, has he done something to make him likable? Walker, he's pitching well. By the way, he's 1-3 this year. His record is 1-3 with a 2.30 ERA. That is very good. The ERA is good. His whip is actually decent, 1.25. It's better than I thought.
It's gone down, yeah.
It's gone down. He was at 1.5 a little while ago.
So really
Here's
quick.
a number that bothers me, though, as a relief pitcher. 31 innings, 29 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Not a lot of swing and miss. Now, last night he had 7. And keep in mind, he had 7 strikeouts last night. So add 7 to that total. He had 22 strikeouts in 28 innings last night. That's not a very good number. So his strikeout numbers have not been very good.
So really quick, here's the teams he has pitched against this year, Mike. So you can get some quick reactions on. So last night was Tampa, and so you're saying that's an average lineup, you would say, right?
Tampa's it's bottom 15.
All right. So before that was the Nationals. Now only one earned run in that game. There were 4 runs in the game, but only one was considered an earned run. So only one got credited to him. Before that, against the Cubs, 2 earned runs allowed. Cubs are a pretty good lineup. Before that, the Marlins, not a good baseball team, only allowed 1 run. The Giants are the big blemish on his resume here. That's the team where he allowed 4 earned runs and 2 home runs in that game. But before that, against the Atlanta Braves, almost 5 innings, no runs allowed. Before that was the Rockies, no runs allowed.
Okay.
So a mixed bag.
A mixed bag. I was going to say, sounds like a little bit of a mixed bag there. Here's the thing, Walker. Somebody just texted in that says Walker's a perfect bullpen guy, which is interesting because last night was Taijuan Walker's 8th bullpen appearance in his life. I don't know how perfect of a bullpen guy he thinks he is because he's never really done it. Actually, yes, it was his 9th, right? He has started 215 games so he has started 215 times in 224 appearances. So he has 9. It was his 9th bullpen appearance in his career last night.
Yes, last night was his 9th.
Yeah. 5 of them have come with the Phillies, 1 with the Mets, and 3 with Seattle. He never pitched out of the bullpen in Arizona, never pitched out of the bullpen in Toronto. So in his 13 years career, he's pitched 9 games out of the bullpen. 5 of them have come in the last
2 years.
2 years, yes. So I don't know that his stuff is – his problem is he doesn't have a lot of swing and miss stuff. Now, if his splitter's working, that changes the dynamic. That's why he struck out 7 guys last night. He had a good split, although he left a couple splits up and guys swung through them.
Yeah, it was like he had a lot of those guys like looking in the wrong spot at times. And, maybe it goes back to what you said before, Mike. It's the mentality. Maybe if he just has the right mentality about it, he's going to execute at a certain level with his pitches.
Yeah, well, listen, I think for right now, if he pitches like he did last night, obviously you got a winning situation there. Guy pitched great last night. I think
you probably
they
won't see him again until Sunday, but
yeah, that's another problem. He throws 3 innings. When's the next time you can use him? Now you're down an arm in the bullpen.
Right.
Like you say to Rob Thompson, hey, who's available tonight? Well, Taijuan's not. What about tomorrow? No, he's not. He threw,
3 innings.
pitches did he throw last night? 3 innings is, and he had 7 strikeouts in the 3 innings. So that's another thing.
He had 45 pitches last night.
Yeah, so he probably sits 2 days.
So that's
I would imagine tonight and tomorrow he's not available.
So maybe like Saturday in Cleveland.
Yeah, probably. But that goes back to what I was saying before. If
you're still short of arm for 2 days.
You're short an arm in the bullpen for probably 2 days in a row now.
Like if you're short for 1 day, it's fine. But 2 days, now you're pushing it in case something happens.
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. All right. I don't think Walker has a lot of value. You'd have to get real creative. But the guy pitching tonight, which game are you more interested in, Josh? Jesus Luzardo pitching tonight or Andrew Painter pitching tonight? He is at AAA Lehigh tonight. Painter makes his AAA debut tonight. I'll be watching that. Now, I'll have them both on, but I have interest in Painter.
So is it like, for you, is it like Luzardo's on the big TV and Painter's on the small TV?
Probably. Or when Painter's on the mound, maybe he goes to the big TV.
Okay.
And then I switch it. Because he'll probably throw 3 innings or so.
Right. He ain't going to pitch more than 3
No,
innings.
I would imagine he goes about 3.
But it's going to be interesting. It's worth watching because...
It's free to watch, I think. Is it free to watch?
If you have MLB TV.
Because the Clearwater games were free.
So if you have MLB TV, if you have a login, you can, from what I understand, you can watch any minor league game.
Yeah, I was watching him pitch in Clearwater, but I don't have MLB.TV.
So maybe it was through some other platform?
You just went to their website. They had it airing there.
The Phillies website?
No, Clearwater Threshers.
Oh, the Clearwater. Well, maybe Lehigh Valley has their own website then.
They do, but I got to check that out. I don't know if you – because I think I tried watching – I don't remember. I don't know.
Well, worst case scenario, if you need my MLB TV login, let me know.
Oh, I do. Why don't you email that to me? All right, coming back. When we return, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The NFL schedule will be out this time next week.
Ooh, baby.
Who has the most difficult schedule in the NFL? That's next. This is the Sports Bash. At 5:31, it's taking a look at the NFL schedule release, which is coming up a week from yesterday. It'll be Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, and of course Thursday we'll have the schedule breakdown for you here. I love the schedule release, not for the wins, loss, but I always like to see like road games, what's a good trip to go on, when. So if I'm looking at the Eagles' schedule, when I want to go somewhere, you generally say, hey, like, is there a place warm, right? Is there a warm spot to go in the winter time, that kind of stuff? That's what you're kind of looking at, right, when you look at the schedule. But did you know that right now the most difficult schedule, this is from ESPN, the hardest schedule this season based on the 2024 opponents' records. The most difficult schedule belongs to the New York Football Giants. The opponent's winning percentage for the Giants this year is .574. So teams have won almost 60% of their games that will face the Giants this year. The Lions, .571. The Bears, .571. And then the Eagles at .561. The Eagles have one of the most difficult schedules in all of football this year. When it comes down to it, they're going to have, listen, the NFC East as a whole, that's why I think the division, the George Pickens trade yesterday, all of it, I think it makes for a much more interesting and wide-open division, that all of these teams in the NFC East are playing a much more difficult schedule this year. And the Eagles playing a schedule with .561 winning percentage. I don't think they're going to win 13 games. You know, when you're playing every single week, there's pretty much a game against a team that is a playoff caliber team. That doesn't mean they're making the playoffs. We talked about last year. Washington won 12 games. They won one game against a playoff team. They beat Philadelphia in the regular season, and that was it. So New York, Dallas. And what's Dallas's because everybody plays the AFC West and the NFC North. So that's their 8 non-conference games, and then everybody has 3 other games, third-place schedule games.
Right.
Who are the 3 games that Dallas has to play?
I'll pull it up.
Because Philadelphia has to play, I think, Buffalo, the Rams, and who's the other first-place team? Tampa Bay. I think it's Philadelphia plays Tampa, the Rams, and Buffalo based on their first-place finish from a year ago. So that's 3 pretty, high-quality opponents that they're playing outside of the 2 cross divisions that they have to play.
So the Cowboys, according to the NFL's website here in front of me, they will be playing the Arizona Cardinals this year.
So that is the AFC West. So the Eagles are playing the Rams. The NFC West. The Eagles are playing the Rams as a crossover game. Dallas is playing Arizona.
Correct.
Okay.
Another team that the Cowboys are playing outside of the contingent you mentioned is...
Because all the teams in the NFC East are playing the NFC North, which is the Bears, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions. So all the NFC teams are East teams. NFC East teams are playing those 4 teams. And then they all play Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs.
Yes, the AFC West.
Yes, so that is the NFC East cross-division games.
Right. So
then they each play 3 more games based on where they finish in the standings. So Dallas finished in 3rd, so they will play Arizona.
Carolina.
Ooh, Carolina.
Well, Carolina played well at the end of last year.
They got better.
And then the Jets.
And the Jets. So there's a difference. Philadelphia plays Buffalo, Tampa, and the Rams. Dallas plays the Jets, Carolina, and Arizona.
Now, one side note, the Jets and Carolina games are both on the road.
A little something.
So it's a little something to keep in mind.
It's a nugget.
You know, maybe if like that Cowboys-Jets game is like December 15th, it might not be advantageous conditions for the indoor team.
Put it this way. You should be a favorite at home or on the road in both of those games.
Yeah, well, I don't believe in Dallas anyway. So.
Wow. You didn't speak up yesterday on that.
I did tell you that. I thought George Pickens was going to implode the team yesterday.
Implode the team.
And I don't believe in Brian Schottenheimer.
So the whole team's going down.
And I think Brian Schottenheimer is going to fail.
Okay, all right.
I think Jerry Jones hired a yes man. And when he hires yes man, he gets 8-8 teams. Or in this case, maybe 8-9.
I can't argue with the Schottenheimer thing. I just don't know. There's no track record of him as a head coach. It's like the Sirianni thing. When you hired Sirianni, I couldn't really give you. I just don't.
Yeah, but the difference is that Jeffrey Lurie at least has a history of hiring people and being
That's
successful.
True. That is true.
Jerry Jones's history is sketchy.
Jerry Jones' history in hiring head coaches. I say all the time. My buddy's a Cowboys fan. He's messaging me yesterday, and I said to him, listen, I say the same thing about Dallas every year. They're always the most talented, the worst run, and the poorest coached.
Yes.
So that always adds up to disaster or failure.
Because Jerry Jones would rather hire people like Dave Campo and Chan Gailey and Brian Schottenheimer, while the Eagles say, no, we're going to hire Andy Reid and Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni.
Jeff brings up this point. He says, all the teams that we beat in the playoffs, the Eagles play next year, they all want revenge. Green Bay, L.A., Washington twice, of course, and Kansas City. Says, I plan to attend 3 of these 5 Eagles road games, depending on the schedule. Green Bay, Kansas City, Buffalo, L.A., and Tampa. That's a lot of travel time there.
By the way, Kansas City, you could almost chalk that up as a loss next year.
Philly?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I just think this is going to be a tough game in Kansas City next year. I think Kansas City got better this offseason.
So apparently, I tweeted out on February 10th.
Okay. It's a while ago.
It comes up because Adam Schefter apparently said yesterday that he's hearing murmurs that the Eagles will be playing the Bears in that Thursday night opener.
Interesting.
To which I said on February 10th, the Bears are my wild card team. Because everybody's saying Lions are Washington.
Lions are Washington.
And I said I think the Bears are the wild card team. And apparently Schefter said somewhere yesterday, I saw people tweeting about this.
Well, the thing is that goes, the reason why you mentioned the Bears is I think why this makes sense, what Schefter is tweeting, is because you had said, Mike, right here on this show, that you look at the Bears as the NFL looked at the Lions 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that when the Lions went to Kansas City. So you were saying if you were going off of the NFL's history of how they handle this stuff, they want the up-and-coming team.
Well, and here's another reason. The NFL puts the Super Bowl champion on there. That's the draw. They don't need to burn one of their high-profile games for the opener.
True.
They know they're going to get good ratings. So I don't want to waste Philly and the Lions on that game. I already have Philly, the Super Bowl champions. It's football returning. So let me get a game that's intriguing, but not my best game. That's what they've kind of done, with some of these games sometime. With the Lions thing was, this is a team that's everybody's buzzing about the Lions. It's not the best matchup, but we already have Kansas City. That'll get us some eyes. So that's why I kind of put the Bears into that formula.
And the Bears are a fascinating team because they rebuilt their entire offensive line. 5 new starters, new head coach. They've retooled that roster, so it'll be a very interesting challenge for Philadelphia week 1.
Paul in Pleasantville. What's up, Paul? Says, Mike and Josh, the most intriguing position battle in training camp for me, defensive back, and that's also the spot I think we need the most help. The outside corner, NFC East teams have very good wide receiver 1s and 2s. That's a good point, Paul. In the Pickens signing yesterday, now you got to deal with Debo and McLaurin, Pickens and CD, and, you got Malik Neighbors, who I think is a beast, but
Neighbors put up good numbers with horrible quarterback play last year.
Yeah, so he's saying the biggest battle is DB, and that's also the spot they need an upgrade. I don't know. Do we have any anticipation for Adoree Jackson?
I think Adoree Jackson will make it interesting. I don't have a lot of faith in him necessarily, but I do think that he has the physical, I heard physical traits during the NFL draft process so many times. Now I'm just repeating words I've heard, but he does have physical ability. It's just a question of does he have the discipline?
A couple more text messages have been coming in here. Sorry, my screen froze for a second. It won't be Washington. Nobody opens the season with a division opponent. Yeah, I don't think Washington's going to be on the list here. Back to Taijuan Walker. Mike, I agree Walker isn't a swing and miss guy, but always got burnt out down the stretch. In 22-23, went from sub-3 first half to +5. I think with less innings in the bullpen, he would have more effective throughout the whole season. Yeah, maybe. Just, it all comes back to I don't know Taijuan's bounce back. Can he throw 1 inning today and then 1 inning again tomorrow? He threw 3 yesterday. Now he's burned for 2 days. That's not a recipe for helping build a solid bullpen.
Right. That's a guy who's a part of your bullpen, not a mainstay of your bullpen.
Well, I mean, it's just not it's you don't want a guy whose role in the bullpen is to throw 3 innings. Because now you're down an arm every night.
Right.
You want the guy to be able to throw, generally you want him to throw back-to-back games, like days. Like,
right.
hey.
The whole point of having a successful bullpen is that the guys are available every day, not every few days.
Exactly. Yeah, are you available today? No. Like, you check back with me in 3 days.
Thanks for nothing.
Let's see. A road game. The Philly road games are Packers.
Yep.
Chiefs, Raiders. No. Packers. Oh, this thing's all over the place.
So the road games I have here are the Packers, Kansas City,
Packers.
LA
Hold
Chargers.
on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Packers
at Green Bay.
KC.
At KC. At LA Chargers.
Uh-huh.
At Vikings. At Buffalo.
Ooh.
And a tradition unlike any other, Mike, at Tampa.
All right.
I mean, they've been at Tampa like 3 straight years, it seems like. Almost every year.
They had a run where they played in Tampa in a while, like in the middle, like in the couple of years ago, too.
Yeah.
So Green Bay is a spot that gets freezing.
Yep.
Minnesota is a spot that can be very cold, but it's indoors. Buffalo, freezing. Kansas City can be cold late in the year. Tampa and the Chargers, you're all right.
Although Tampa, remember last year, the problem was it was too high.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want Tampa.
You want Tampa in like November and December, and you want like Kansas City in November.
Yeah, I'm going Tampa, December. Buffalo, I would say
October.
Early in the year, September.
September.
Minnesota, you also, well, that's an indoor game, so that
doesn't
don't matter. The Chargers.
Doesn't matter. They're indoors. That's SoFi.
Yep. Kansas City, you want early. You'll take that like in October. And Green Bay, you would probably prefer to have that earlier in the season, too, because it gets cold out there. So you're hoping, when you look at this, that you get a Tampa December, a Buffalo September early game. Maybe like, your early Sunday night football game.
Now, really quick, Mike, you've always been a guy who likes to talk about where you would like to go for a road trip. So if Mike Gill was sitting here looking at this schedule, not worrying about the days yet, but obviously, is there a destination city for the Philadelphia Eagles this year?
It's not a great road destination city. Like, I've been to Tampa a bunch. I love it down there, but I don't need to go there for a football game. Buffalo, I've actually been to Buffalo. I don't need to go back. Although I hope I'm back in August. That means my team made the World Series because it's near Buffalo.
Okay.
I've been to Minnesota, cool town.
Just not great in the winter.
Yeah. L.A., not a huge fan. I don't need to go back to L.A. I don't love L.A. It's not my style. Although I wouldn't mind seeing SoFi. I've never been to Kansas City. I hear it's really cool.
I've been told the food is really good in Kansas.
Yeah, I hear Kansas City's got great barbecue. I know a guy I used to work with, a guy named Jason Ulinet. Anybody remember Jason Ulinet? I used to work with him in radio on a different station 25 years ago. But great dude. He lives in Kansas City. Yeah.
All right.
Green Bay, I'd like to go check out Lambeau. So if I'm picking here, it'd be Kansas City or Green Bay. Probably I would rather see Lambeau than eat the food in Kansas City.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah. That would be my
the Mike
breakdown
Gill power rankings
of those two.
Are Green Bay, one.
Well, I've been to L.A. I've been to not the football stadiums, but I've been to L.A. I've been to Minnesota. I've been to Buffalo. Actually, I drove through Buffalo. I wasn't really in Buffalo. Went to Niagara Falls.
That's driving through.
Yeah, I mean, I saw like I didn't see this football stadium. It's out in Orchard Park. Yeah, it's like 10 minutes outside.
I almost call it some other name.
I got the Bet365 play of the day coming up for you here on the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN. And we'll try to clip off any texts that we have still coming in before we get out of here tonight. Keep them coming. 609-403-0973. Bet365 Play of the Day next. All right, time for the Bet365 play of the day. Before we get out of here tonight, we'll see if we can win some more money for the people. I don't know how we did last night, though, Josh. How did we do?
Split the difference, Mike. So, for those who maybe fell asleep early, OKC and Denver didn't hit the over. They hit like 2 overs last night. It was ridiculous.
Denver almost hit it by OKC almost hit it by themselves.
Yeah, OKC was trending to just hit the over by themselves until Denver to go home. But Boston and the Knicks was a low-scoring mid-90s game. So they did not hit the over.
I'm still shocked by the way this series. I can't believe Boston, 2 straight games. They went 33s last night. Were they 10 for 40? I think
10 for 40
from 25% from 3-point range, and they still almost won the game. That is what's mind-boggling.
By the way, in both games, the Knicks were also down 20 points in both games.
Yeah, and Boston during the regular season only lost 20-point leads once and lost the game.
Telling you,
this is now the 3rd time it's happened twice in 2 nights.
The luck of the Irish is running out. The Pope's from Villanova. Brunson's from Villanova. It's a sign from God.
Well, I hope to God I win some money here for the people out there. I don't want them bailing on my picks because I've been pretty good this year. Split last night, so we got back on the winning track. Warriors, Minnesota, under 201.5. That's my Bet365 play of the day. Warriors, Minnesota, under 210.5 is my Bet365 play of the day.
No Steph Curry tonight.
I know. It's one of the reasons why I like the under. By the way, split last night makes me 161, 109, and 1.
That is correct, sir.
Wrote that down over here.
Good job.
On my trusty note sheet.
So you're going to have the split screen going tonight.
I'm going to go Andrew Painter's getting the start tonight. By the way, Painter, his career minor league numbers, it's his highest level of organized ball tonight, AAA. In 30 career minor league games, 121 innings, he's given up 81 hits, 23 runs, 179 strikeouts on 121 innings. His ERA is 171 and his whip, .88.
So you're saying he's good?
He's been pretty good.
Okay.
Been pretty good. So, yeah, I'm going to be watching Painter tonight. He's pitching for the Iron Pigs tonight. So if you want to watch, I think you just go to the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs website, and you can try to figure it out from there. I can't guarantee that it's free. Maybe it was the first week. I don't know. I have watched him pitch before, though, for Clearwater. Maybe the Clearwater because it's low A. I don't know.
Maybe that's free.
But
well, let me know if what I sent you helps you, okay?
I will. Thank you for that. And then the Phillies, of course, tonight. So 6:45, Painter starts. Phillies start right after. It's 7:05. So you get about 20 minutes of Painter if you want to go that route. Watch the little Phils and the Iron Pigs tonight. All right, that'll do it for me. What is up next? You got game night followed by nothing. No, tomorrow night you got Indy and Cleveland. So we'll have more NBA playoffs here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, everybody, have a great night. See ya.